Just for the Greystone.
Okay, planning board meeting is now open, July 18th. And just for everybody at home, we're being recorded and taped, recorded on TV and taped. First thing on our agenda is a Form A on Forest Street. Whoever's here for Forest Street, Form A, you can put your plan up on the easel. Excuse me, state your name for the record.
Jonathan Pick from Zenith Consulting Engineers.
You want him at the podium so they can pick it up on them?
Yeah, if you, so he can hear you over there, can you stand over the microphone? And I'll give you a laser pointer, and you can, if you have anything you'd like to
If I can see it.
point out, just point in that direction.
How do you make it work?
Right here. That little button,
Okay.
all right?
Yep.
So again, could you state your name when you get to the microphone?
Yeah, Jonathan Pick.
Okay, and you're here for a Form A.
Yep. Fairly simple Form A. You got two lots here that are extend into the large property right now, and they're just going to be lopped off. The triangles will still be conforming lots. And then there's going to be added this buffer strip here, a scenic view buffer strip. And that's basically it. It's that simple.
Okay, so a scenic view buffer strip. Oh, you have the full plan there? What's,
Well, it's the backyards of people on Parkwood Drive.
Yeah, that's gonna be a no-cut zone.
No
subdivision
clearing.
plan. So they've cut it off, so it's gonna end up being a no-cut buffer zone in the back of Parkwood.
Form A.
okay, but what are they, that's the only part that is being, is part of the Form A? I don't have a little plan in front of me to read it.
It's Lot 3 and Lot 4. Is that what we're talking about?
Right.
And they just taken off these little,
Oh, no,
They
funky
originally
pieces.
extended where the dashed lines are, but that's coming off now.
Can I approach the bench?
yes, sir.
Yeah, these lots originally had this long leg, so now this long leg will be part of this subdivision, and it's gonna become a no-cut easement, so they have a buffer to these three lots that are being proposed back in here. These lots have already been Form A'd, they're already being built on. They're basically just reconfiguring these two lots and creating this.
Oh, this is the
Yes,
Yeah, this is.
Greystone.
Yeah.
Greystone.
They're just reconfiguring these two lots and adding it to
Okay.
the subdivision, which will end up being a buffer zone.
This buffer zone here, we talked about that with Greystone. I thought
Yeah,
that was part of that
that's
one.
what-
Talk about it after this.
That's where I was getting confused. Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Pink? Did I do it right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Any questions from the board? Questions?
I don't have any.
Do we have all our paperwork and checked and everything? Clerk's got
Got
it?
it here.
All set?
Yep. Make a motion, we approve a plan entitled Approval Not Required, Plan of Land, Forest Street, Raynham, Massachusetts, Marcus Baptiste and Jamie Emerson, 3 Chester Avenue, Berkeley, Massachusetts. The plan prepared by ZCE, Zenith Consulting Engineers, LLC, and it is dated June 26, 2019, as a plan not requiring subdivision approval.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll take back my laser pointer so you don't leave with it.
Hand that down.
Thank you very much.
Have you signed? We have you signed on the second back. Yeah, they're.
These can be signed?
Yeah, yes, please.
So you can take that Mylar and get it recorded and then just bring back the information of the recording?
Yep.
Russ will sign those other.
Do you need the recording information?
Yes, you bring it to the planning office, Maureen.
Yep.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can take that plan, yeah, take that with you.
All right.
Next is Greystone Estate subdivision plan and special permit for estate lots, Forest Street and Locust Street.
Yes, you have to open that hearing.
In accordance with provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Raynham zoning bylaws, Article 6, Section 6.12.0, estate lots to Raynham. Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 18, 2019, at 6:05 PM at Raynham Veterans Memorial Town Hall, 558 South Main Street, on application for special permit submitted by Marcus Baptista, Berkeley, Mass., to allow the creation of 2 estate lots on property located on the south side of Forest Street, Assessors Map 13, lots 19, 20, and 21, Raynham, Mass. Any person wishing to be heard or interested in this submittal should appear at the time and place designated. Copy of the application and plan are available for viewing at the Town Clerk's office and Planning Board office, 558 South Main Street, during usual scheduled hours. Raynham Planning Board, Daniel J. Andrade.
Thank you. All right, just for everybody that's been following Greystone, the reason why that was read into record as a new public hearing, that was for the special permit. That's that hearing there, we're having both of them at the same time. That hearing is for the 2 estate lots, which is a special permit. So that's a new hearing. The public hearing for Greystone Estates is a continued hearing, and we are opening them both up to Mr. Gallagher. State your name for the record.
Frank Gallagher, Gallagher Engineering, Foxborough, and I'm here with Marcus Baptiste, who's the applicant. And so our special permit is for what's shown on that plan as Estate Lot 4 and Estate Lot 5. It's already been before you, at least a couple of hearings now. Those are, under that fairly recent bylaw that allows reduced frontage and increased size lots, Lot 4 and Lot 5 meet the criteria laid out in that estate lot provision in the zoning regulations. And then our Greystone Estate subdivision is the other 3 lots, and the roadway that you can see that runs down the page from Forest Street, which is running horizontally across the top of the page.
Frank, if you don't mind, I'd like to do let's stick with the 2 estate lots first.
Okay.
Because they're a special permit, we'll get those out of the way.
All right.
So we have 1 estate lot, which is coming off of Locust Street,
Correct.
and 1 estate lot is coming off of Forest Street. So this is the Forest Street, and there's the driveway.
Yes.
The bylaw says they need 50-foot frontage
Mm-hmm.
and 80,000 minimum square feet.
Right.
This is the other one on Locust Street, comes
Right.
up, and there's the house.
Right. So there's an existing gravel driveway that comes off Locust Street, and that would be the access to that estate lot. At a certain point, you can see that we're proposing some new driveway to come off of that gravel drive, but that's the existing gravel drive that actually serves the house that's out there
Okay,
right now.
and there's only going to be 1 house on the Locust coming off of Locust Street,
Correct.
and 1 house coming off of Forest Street on these individual driveways.
That is exactly
The only new thing to the mix was somebody was in front of us tonight doing a Form A for this strip here.
right.
So this strip here belongs to not this person anymore, but it belongs to up here.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what we just did. We approved a Form A plan to separate this piece, so what's the width, what was the width of that? that strip, 40?
30.
32.5 feet. So that buffer strip for behind all the houses on Parkwood Drive is 32 foot 5 inches or 6 inches. So that strip is a non-touchable strip. So you'll have protection back there for that.
Right. And that's basically a guaranteed minimum buffer. You know, I think realistically, it may wind up being more than that, but.
Oh, I'm sure it
as
is,
an
but at least
absolute
that's on
minimum.
paper. That's the legal
Yeah.
side of it.
Mhm.
They'll probably only be clearing up in here somewhere where you showed on your plan.
Mhm.
Are you setting any bounds?
I haven't shown anything on my plan. I'm not sure whether that Form A showed bounds to be set or not. But if the board would like, we can, we can do that.
It would probably be a good idea because you don't want these people that are moving into, not this guy here moving in, but once this here gets approved, you have this subdivision, which, again, he could turn around, either one of them could turn around and say they didn't know their line was where their line was. So if you could, you can make that part of the special permit condition is requiring
Okay.
concrete bounds
Mhm.
for property corners.
All right.
Anybody else on the board, questions on just the two estate lots? Bob, anything to add to the estate lots? Questions?
Yeah, we briefly touched on this at the last meeting. We had a concern about the driveway for the subdivision, and then immediately after, another driveway for the estate lot. We were supposed to have some discussion tonight as to whether or not the board had some kind of a comfort level to let this lot be accessed off the road as an additional driveway opening. So I think we should spend some time talking about that. The other thing I want to bring to Frank's attention is the bylaw for a estate lot requires 50 feet minimum all the way through. This is a 40-foot easement, but you have 50 feet at the road, is that correct?
Yes.
Because you have a radius here?
Mhm.
What do we have of frontage left over here to make the it's either we have a 50-foot minimum opening here that accesses this lot, or we maybe have to,
Well, I thought that was, excuse me, I thought that was pre-existing non-conforming where there was already a house coming off of that driveway. So that's why we had, I think in one of our first discussions, was keeping that as a single lot because they had received a variance for one lot. So I thought that was gonna be allowed for the exact same size that it was for,
well, the non-conformity's been changed now because we've cut the lot up. So you want to look at that as a waiver? Or if you're comfortable with the way it is? I'll have to go back and look at the bylaw.
I'm comfortable as is, or give it a waiver. Either way, again, we're replacing one house with another house.
Okay.
let me finish, let Bob finish. So,
So I guess the only thing you want to talk about is to whether or not you're comfortable with that opening and then an immediate driveway opening right adjacent to it.
well, my feeling on that last time was they're gonna put street trees up, and I would personally, it would be nice to have that off of there, but it's a 3-lot subdivision that we're approving, not a 4-lot. If they want to work things out in the future and change it, I just don't think that retreat lot should have access coming off of that 3-lot subdivision, or else we're gonna open up to, now we're gonna have 4 lots in the future, and I think we discussed that last time, and,
Yeah, I agree, but people will work it out.
you know, if they,
I'm not going over to look at it.
no,
and
if
see
they,
where
you
they're
know, if they
using
decide to
driveway.
do something, and then they wanna come back to the board and discuss it, and they're gonna, make some improvements or something, then I think we're gonna stick with the 3 lots, driveways for 3 lots.
What's the space between the street and the driveway?
Let me just
Estate
see.
lot, you know?
Uh,
I mean, it looks close on a small drawing, but I mean,
It's probably 30 feet.
From edge to edge, it's it's about 35 feet.
Good call. Good eye. Okay.
Well, there's only 50 feet. You're following 50 feet all the way through,
Yes, yeah, the width is 50,
so.
all the way through.
So, anybody, audience, questions on only the estate lots, not the subdivision? Yes, state your name for the record, and could you go up to the microphone?
The broadcast can't get you unless you're talking to that mic.
Pam Rogers. I'm just curious in relation to my home, where that driveway would be coming out. I'm at 100 Forest Street.
I'm sorry,
So
can you
that-
give us your address? please?
100 Forest Street?
So you're on the corner,
Okay.
you're right over there,
Right, I'm on the corner of Everett.
and
Forest.
so how much, well, this, what's the frontage of this lot? There's one house here, correct, two?
There's two here, so that's 300 feet of frontage.
You know where the two, are there, are those houses are up, right?
Built now.
There's two right across
Two
from
existing
us
houses?
right now.
The driveways, if you're heading
Directly.
towards, you're heading towards Locust Street. The driveway is gonna be after the second house.
Okay.
So it's like,
It's about 200 feet from your corner, which would be right here, the closest point on your lot to this driveway, about 200 feet.
concerns with entrance of the,
We're not pleased with it. I wasn't happy to see any of the houses go up because we were under the impression it was protected when we purchased the home. So obviously that's not the case, but there's not too much we can do about that.
okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Ready to make a motion on the two estate lots?
It's a special permit.
It's a special permit.
Um,
Do we have a file number on that?
We still have
You
it.
passed it down.
I think John's going to be in charge of making this motion,
Why is that?
because
Got the paperwork.
He does the paperwork.
You looking for a file number?
I think that's what he said, yeah.
Yeah, file number or,
Something I gotta read to say.
or a plan, so he has the information just to read for the estate lots for a special permit.
Who's Ranger?
Take that plan.
Yeah, you're gonna have to read that.
Read that,
I gotta get a little closer.
yeah, well, just put it in front, yeah, grab it, put it in front of you.
Wait a minute, John.
That's all right.
Nah, you're gonna have to go with that.
That's all right.
You might actually
I wanna do what? Flip?
yeah,
This is no good?
the one that's really, I think, the one that's going to be recorded is, the second sheet.
This is the motion for the special permit.
Special
Right.
permit for two estate lots,
Okay.
one on Forest Street, one on Locust Street.
Okay, I make a motion to approve a special permit for two estate lots on the plan, a definitive plan of subdivision of land in the town of Raynham, situated off Forest Street, lot layout sheet, prepared by Marcus Baptista and Jamie Amerson, 3 Chestnut Avenue, Berkeley, Mass., prepared by Gallagher Engineering of Windsor Drive, Foxborough, dated 12/27/18. Let's see, do we have a revision number? Revision 2. No?
There's a revised date.
revised through.
Yeah, that's the second revision. so
Yeah,
that
revision
date-
2, 6/6/19.
6/6.
6/6/19.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
Seconded for discussion as part of the special permit. We'd like to add that the estate lot has concrete bounds on all property corners.
All property corners?
On the corners abutting the property owners along Parkwood.
So you would say, I guess you'd want to say maybe the
You want a hearing?
the eastern boundary line. This would be the eastern boundary line, so a bound at each end of that.
Of
Are we
the-
looking
of the
for
no-
that?
Of the no-cut
The
zone.
only reason why I said all corners is again, just so once this three-lot subdivision goes through, we don't have confusion where these, because their property line basically is gonna go up to this road.
What do we need, about 4 boundaries set?
Yeah, when you do this, when you do the road boundary, you're doing both of these, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna be doing one bound here, you don't need anything up there, and then you're gonna do one here, and one there, so it's like,
Okay.
so it's, you have two estate lots butting up against the road. When the three people move in, they have to plow, they have to maintain, they have to do their own thing. I'd like for them all to know what they own, and, you know, we put in wooden stakes, the wooden stakes get raked over and they're done, so. So I guess the motion would be for,
There were 3 that were needed?
Yeah, and if you want to bound that.
There's gonna be
that,
4.
Scenic buffer, yeah, 4.
There's gonna be 4.
Okay. Yeah, the 4 cement bounds be placed along the scenic
And you know where I'm talking about, right, Bob?
easement.
So if there's any questions, you can always ask
All right.
Bob or email me or something.
All right, so my motion is amended for this, for the markers.
So the motion was made and amended. Anything else?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So special permit for the 2 lots is approved. So now we have Greystone Estates subdivision plan. And before we get going with that, we already opened it. We have a letter here from Niche Engineering. The one thing that we did ask Niche to review was basically the drainage, because we have a list of waivers for the road, sidewalks, and regular configuration of a standard subdivision layout. I do have a letter from Niche stating that the plans and the calculations as presented appear to meet the requirements of Stormwater Handbook and the Raynham Rules and Regs. The proposed basin will attend 100-year storm event, 7-inch above 24 hours. So the only one thing that we asked them, it's acceptable and approved by our engineer. So, now you can,
Okay,
again, this is a new hearing, so state your name for the record.
okay. Frank Gallagher Engineering,
And you are representing,
representing Marcus Baptiste, who's the applicant. So, just a couple things, and what,
why don't you stay back there so we don't get hollered at from waiting, if you want the laser pointer.
So, Stephen Van Treska and I communicated, and what he asked for was some erosion control around the retention basin. So that's one addition to the plan from when last we met. There's some hay bales, erosion control that kind of encircle.
He said he can't hear you. Can you stand next to you, pull your mic up?
So just a couple things that are different, that have been added to the plan since we last met. And that is, one of the things is erosion control around the detention basin, right here.
Okay.
We show a detail of hay bales on on sheet number 5, and we show their location on this sheet right here. So that's one thing that's been added. We added street trees to the plan in accordance with the regulations, the subdivision regulations. So we're now proposing street trees at 40 feet on both sides of the road. So there's no waiver now from that provision. And then we also, when we talked last, and I know there's a concern, especially where this driveway is somewhat close to our road. So I guess, and so that's one thing that is a concern. And then also just, if you look at the 3-lot subdivisions that have been done, they kind of, you want to sort of highlight the entrance and try to do something that's, a little more aesthetic at the entrance. We don't have a heck of a lot of room, and if you look at the plan, we actually took rounding easements on the on the two estate lots, just to give us that 25-foot radius that the regulations call for. So we do have a small amount of room, and what we're proposing is just a couple of stone pillars at the entrance. I've got it shown on this plan that I can pass out. That's fine, and that'll just show you where the location is on them.
How wide are the pillars?
They're 3 foot by 3 foot at the base and 4 feet high. So it's at least something that's sort of decorative, but you can see if you look at the plan, there's not a whole lot of room. I think we felt like we could add that. We felt like we could add that feature in, and it's, it's something that's sort of decorative and adds a little bit of aesthetic look. And it's not so...
It'll define the entrance,
right,
basically.
And it's not so cumbersome that it would restrict, it's not going to restrict sight distance, and it's not going to,
Well, I think our biggest thing from the
access.
beginning was when we were doing a subdivision coming off of Locust Street, it was basically a tunnel going in with nothing. Nobody, you're going to drive by, you're not going to see anything. At least with this, you're going to drive by and there's over... there's got to be 40, 50, there's over 150 foot almost frontage that is open pretty much. You're going to see the road, you're going to see all the trees now, you have trees planting. So it's going to be, I think it'll look nice. At least when they drive by, they're going to be able to see. Now, do you have a spot, did you put a sign, your sign post in this plan? Because just wondering, you're going to have the pillars and then you're going to have signposts. I don't know if you can incorporate your sign with the pillars, because as part of the conditions, we are going to, you need the sign for the name of the road plus a private way sign. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you...
That would go on the same...
Same pole,
Yeah.
but I don't know if you can incorporate that into the pillow and have a nice wooden sign or something.
Oh.
That's something you can discuss with
Okay.
your applicant, discuss with Bob when you go and do your street sign. The street sign's gonna have to get put up when you get started anyway, so. Yep,
For the record, Marcus Baptiste, I would do a stone, like a granite insert in the stone pillar, but I don't think that would meet 911 fire department. I think we're still gonna have to do a street sign on the pole. Maybe put private way in the stone pillar. I'll go over it with Bob.
yeah, come up with something, because it's, again, you want the stone pillars to enhance the entrance and not be confusing. You got pillars and you got a street sign, you got trees, we don't want to impose something on you that's not gonna look right.
Yeah, maybe when we're building the stone pillars, I'll get together with Bob and meet out at the site.
Okay.
And then I had one other issue that was brought up at the last meeting was the 5 trees behind the house of 9 Parkwood Drive.
Yep.
I met with the homeowner. We have signed an agreement. I'll provide a copy to the board. Basically, we agreed to plant 5 8-foot-tall Thuja green giant arborvitaes. These are going to supplement existing arborvitaes on their property. We've agreed upon a general location. We'll determine the final location the day we're planting them. And I said the planting shall occur within 1 month from the expiration of the subdivision permit appeal period. So we're all set on that, and I have a copy of that for the board.
Legal side, the legal aspect of it. Okay, so we have the pillars, we have street trees, we have hay bales around the detention area. The rear property lines that we spoke about was taken care of with the previous Form A plan. Drainage calcs are all set. Steve, Nothing, nothing else besides drainage that you,
No, for drainage, no, nothing else that.
okay.
Was
there some-
Other than to say that I would imagine there'd be an operation and maintenance plan that the 3 lots would share and, maintain the basin in the back and the catch basin that's proposed in the swale as well.
Yeah, we can put that in the conditions. Okay. Board members, any questions, comments? John? Members, audience, neighbors, you're all set? Bob?
The only thing I would say, you want to change that revision date. The approved plans have been revised since the last copy, because you put the new detention stuff on it. So what's the new date?
July 9th.
Do we have waivers we need to vote on?
Yeah, I have a list here. So, with, that's all, Bob? I will read down the list of waivers.
Do we have a copy of those, or?
They are on the cover sheet of the plan. They should be, and I'm not sure.
I don't need them. I'm going to read them. I don't need them.
So we have section 3.7, project review fee. Planning board fees schedule, section 4. Section 6, environmental impact statement. Section 8.1 to 8.4, stormwater management. Section 8.6, obligations. Section 8.9, location and horizontal alignment of streets. 8.9, right-of-way width. 8.9, width of pavement. 8.9, conformance to typical cross-section. Section 8.11, dead-end street. 8.11, property line diameter of 125 feet. 8.12, driveway opening curb cuts. 9.7, drainage. 9.9, curbing, and 9.10, sidewalks. So those waivers are being requested, and condition of approval are all listed on the cover of the approved plans. What do you got? Number 1, with the following additional conditions. So those are conditions. So, we can take waivers first.
Do you have any input on?
This is Bob's, Bob prepared this list.
I should have gave this to you.
No.
Okay, just read. I have another copy, John, so.
It's all right. I'll remember.
I make a motion to approve the waivers as read.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So as part of the approval for the plan, I would say there will be a 40-foot no-cut easement along the boundary line. Now, that back boundary line is we're not gonna have that on this approval because that was already done on the other Form A.
Let's put it on this one, too.
Put it on this one, too?
Yeah, what the heck.
Okay, so,
It's 32 and a half feet, though, isn't it?
Right, it is, yes.
I used 40 for some reason. I thought we talked about 40, but the plan shows 32 and a half.
okay. There'll be a 32 and a half no-cut easement along the boundary line with Park Drive properties. There will be a landscape stonework entrance to the subdivision to identify and beautify the entrance. The sign identifying a private way will be placed at the entrance. No building permits will be issued until base coat and drainage facilities are in place. All improvements to be completed before the last building permit is issued. A recorded document shall be submitted stating that this road shall remain a private way, not to be accepted by the town of Raynham. And number 7, an operation maintenance plan will need to be supplied to the town along with each individual owner, because you are going to have, are you going to create an association?
I was planning on having homeowners association documents, and the operation and maintenance plan would be part of that document,
Okay, so I'm going to say that'll be number 7.
which I'll submit to the board before I give it to homeowners for the board's approval.
So, homeowners association and drainage operation maintenance plan. All right, anything else?
Subject to the applicant completing the planting agreement with the owner of the 9 Parkwood Drive property, said agreement dated July 18, 2019.
Very good. So, those conditions are added to the Greystone plan. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Just one of the things, just to cover ourselves, should we add anything else in there to say that those other 2 lots were just approved? Like, we're not giving them access to that road, so we never have somebody coming back saying, there's 5 lots there. Just like clear it out so we can show somebody this was for 3 lots, not 5.
We can, once the, any attorney going to the registry of deeds is going to see the plan, it's being spelled out, Cornerstone, Greystone subdivision, 3-lot subdivision. But we can add that in there, that
If you think it's good enough.
any, Burke's the registry guy. You want to put it in there as a condition?
Well, we just said earlier, we'll let them work it out, whether or not they take access from that road, and now we're gonna put restrictions on it, so
Well, no.
it's one way or the other.
No, we're not going to let them, we're going to let them work it out. They still are going to have to come back in front of the board if they wanted to put a driveway off the road. We're not going to, again, the 3 people buying those 3 houses, they're the ones responsible, they're the ones paying for the road. So the other 2 people
Have no responsibility.
either have to be family and they love them, or else they're going to be part of that.
Okay.
They're going to have to come back in front of the board because there's going to be, issues.
Use of the private way.
Restricted to the
is
3 lots.
restricted to the owners of lots
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3 on the subdivision plan.
It would be wise to do that, I think, because it's only going to be one recorded plan that's going to show all 5 lots.
Okay.
So you're not going to have a separate,
No, there's not going to be a separate plan recorded for the 2 estate lots.
okay, so number 8 on the condition is going to be that,
Use of the
Private way.
private way is limited to the owners of lots 1, 2, and 3 as shown on the plan.
okay. So with that done, anything else? That was seconded? All in favor? Aye. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for working with us.
So these, yeah, thank you. These, we'll retype these up and get you the decision. The waivers are already on the cover sheet of the plan, so,
But I'll have to update the conditions of approval on that.
okay. Well, Maureen will redo, Bob gave me this, so I'll give this back to Bob.
I have it.
You have, no, with the few things that I wrote down, the operation, maintenance, homeowner association, and then the use for the 3. Very good.
I could have done that.
All right. so-
All right, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a good luck. Do a good job.
Dan, hold on, Marcus, hold on. The agreement between him and the Paramount Drive people, does somebody have that?
I need a copy of that. Anybody
I
got
have
it?
another copy.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
That's the agreement for
Oh,
the
yeah.
arborvitae's.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Do you want it back?
That's my only other sign.
Yeah, take,
They're both originals?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
okay. 6:15, public hearing, Raynham Preserve East subdivision plan. Step right up.
Living color this time, huh? You guys want a copy down there? I like one. Dan, you have one?
No,
Okay.
yeah, I looked at it,
You
so.
guys can share that? Yeah, we can share. I'll share the other one.
Okay, welcome. State your name for the record.
For the record, it's Evan Watson from Prime Engineering, engineer who drew the plans and representative of the applicant. What we've presenting tonight is a revised design. It's not the full set of design plans, but we feel it represents what we took for input on the last meeting that we had with the board. So what we were hearing is that the feeling was the design was slightly cramped. It created a lot of excess grading due to how the lots were sized. And the last plan that you reviewed, the road was filled significantly for the sewer infrastructure. So we've looked at the sewer infrastructure, we've redone that design, and we were able to lower the road significantly. And by doing so, we've been able to come up with a full site grading plan that shows a much less, I wouldn't call it offensive site, but a much less filled site. So what we saw before in our original submission, we basically needed to cut down all the trees out to the open space and fill all the lots. Now, we've basically been able to bring the tree line out of the open space onto the lots, still provide a 50-foot backyard for all the lots. And you can see that we're actually able to save some trees in between the lots. And we've done that by both lowering the road and by reducing the number of lots. So we've gone from 28 lots to 26 in this design. What we've done is we've essentially kept the houses around the cul-de-sac the same. Those lots graded out fairly well. The slope goes from like down the road so that the houses fit well onto the land without a lot of grading. But as you go along the straightaway, we do have to fill a little bit because of the groundwater table, et cetera. So what we've done is we spread out the area and the frontage from those two lots across all of those there. So now the lots are much more spread out. Everybody gets a little more elbow room, and we definitely don't need as much fill, and we save a lot more trees. So we wanted to provide the board with this plan to see if we could get any input on it. I haven't done the drainage design. I suspect that we'd be able to lower the drainage ponds a little bit as well. But I didn't want to go through the full, effort of redesigning the drainage if this wasn't something that was appealing to the board.
All right, so let's just go over, Niche did a review. that review letter was quite extensive. We were talking, it had real steep or deep banks on the detention area. I think there was some that had over 8, 9, 10 feet on that.
That's correct.
On that first review.
That's correct.
Is that going to change with this, by you lowering everything?
Yeah.
Remember we talked about that a couple
Yes.
meetings ago?
Yeah, so we had a few comments from the initial review. One of them, there was a concern about the height of the dike of the larger detention basin. So we can address that. We can reshape the detention basin so it's not so pointy and bring it up a little, up the slope a little, and we can also lower the grade, probably by about 2 feet, and still make it work well.
Now,
So we can eliminate that.
just, the other members of the board, we are, and everybody knows, we're going to be redoing working on our rules and regs and bylaws. What we do here on this plan, I feel is going to be looked at going forward, as this is what a cluster development should be. Everything that I read on open space is almost the opposite of what we've done in the past. I know it meets the bylaw, the intent of the bylaw for open space. I can wear two hats, and as, I read it, and I know by not having a lot of fill, not having high yards, there's two things you're gonna do. You're either not gonna have a basement, because we have to be 2 feet from the water table, or we have wider frontages back to the 150, so we can grade those off, so we don't have high yards. I looked at Bassett Knoll, the original, the other side of this. And what I think I was missing is, as I pulled out some as-built plans, the setback from property lines on the cluster developments are only 10 feet.
It actually allows you to go to 0 feet if the circumstances allow. But yeah, your standard is 10.
Right.
Yep.
And I think looking at that and trying to grade a house when you have 5 feet of fill is really hard. And I think that's why we have some of those lots that are really steep. So I'm not sure, I tried talking a little bit, Bob, I don't have the answer, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I don't want to restrict. I know it's nice to have shorter roads, it's nice to have the open space, it's nice to have, these projects like this are going to have open space no matter what you do, because of the way the land is. You have a lot of open wetland area, there's a lot of open space, there's areas in the back that they can't get to. I don't want to I don't think we should allow having houses with only 10 feet of side yard being 5 or 6 feet above the existing grade. Now, I did look at proposed grades, and I did look at existing grade on some as-builts. And all I did was took two plans. I think one was lot 32 and 31 on Bassett Knoll, not here, and foundation height was like 2 feet higher than what was proposed, and the grading, well, the foundation might have been 3 feet high and the grading was 2 feet higher. What's that mean? Does that mean, besides the aesthetics, because you take the planning board to court and they're gonna say, well, too bad about your aesthetics. It's not in your regs. This is what you have for cluster development. These are your rules and regs. That's what you meet. That's what that's what we have to go by. It's no such, they're not gonna say, we have nothing to stand on if we're gonna say aesthetics. But that's where we have to get. If everybody, if people driven through, you see all these houses. Raising the house and having an underside, under.
Hold on, Dan.
No, go ahead.
having a house raised and having a two-car garage under, that's not a problem. Because now you do some stone walls, you do a retaining wall, you do something, you have the garage under. Those are able to look natural, I guess you would say.
But if you only have 10 feet to the boundary?
Well, the advantage of having garage under is you don't have you're saving an extra 24 feet for a width of a garage. Because the garage is under, so your house is only 40 feet maybe,
Okay.
instead of being
Yep.
60 feet.
So you've got more than 10 feet.
So you have more than 10 feet. And I think, I'm not even sure Bob understood what I was trying to get at, but I'm trying to come up with a way not to complicate it, but how do we get it so, we talked about, each site is going to be different. So how do we get it to, is it groundwater? Do we say you can't come, add 4 feet to existing grade? I think when you start getting over more than 4 feet to the existing grade, it's a lot. I don't, this is in front of us as open space. I'm not looking to delay this any further, but I think we need to.
Well, but you make good points, but I think that open space, there's a reason we have discretion. We don't have to automatically approve them.
Exactly.
And I think that some of the points you're making are perfectly legitimate for turning one down.
They are. And I'm not, I'm trying to come up with working with a cluster development and not turning a cluster development down. Is there such a thing?
Yeah, if I could make some comments with some of what I'm hearing here. So I know on the Raynham Preserve subdivision was designed some time ago. And when I review the design plans that were approved, and we look at the way that the road was designed and the way the lots were designed, it didn't have the same look at the water table that the town's asking us to look at now, and for a good reason. That we should have the basements elevated above the water table. A lot of the elevations on those proposed houses were a little too low. So when we came back and actually designed the houses, they're up a little. With this design, we have the benefit of knowing that we're going to have to keep the foundations out of the water table. And so the road is being designed with all that in mind so that we get a better look. On the south side of the road there, you can see that the houses, I think, are only 2 feet above grade, and then we have a walkout basement. On the other side, we do what Longbill Homes calls a daylight basement, so it's 4 feet down, and you get a full window, and the back side is basically sunk like 2 or 3 feet into the ground. So we've done we've done test pits here, water tables between 2 feet and 30 inches or so. So the way I designed those house lots on the east side, or the higher side of the page, basically we went to the finished grade, the existing grade, went down a foot. So now we're a foot above the water table with our slab, and carry that back, and that's how we were able to grade everything out. And if you look at the backyards, they're all right there at grade, and I'd say 90% of the lots are at existing grade in between at the lot line. Might need a little bit of fill just to catch the road, because I didn't want to sink the road so much that the water shoots out of the ground. So this, I think we have the benefit of being able to design the whole project together correctly, so that it's, we don't have one group basically designing the road, another group coming in and doing the lots and everything. We're basically doing it all together.
Okay, so now, with that said, you're asking for a wet basin that's not even in our regs.
Yeah, so with the basins.
Now,
Yep, go ahead.
and again, this is, I know you're in front of us, just look at the plan. I'm looking at it for two different things. I'm looking at it for going for the town of Raynham going forward, and how we can make a cluster development work, so we're not looked at that we're busting chops. There should be no reason that you come in with a plan and there's, this thing's been going for 20 years, so there's a lot of history to this one. if you don't have the wet basins, what would that do to this road? And again, be honest,
Yeah, no,
because
I
I'm looking at our future regs. Do we add wet basins back into our regs like we had in the past? So what would this subdivision look like if we said no on the wet basin, stick to the,
So I don't think the layout of the lots would change very much.
more so the height though?
Yes, so what I would probably do is I wouldn't be able to raise the road at the entrance because that's fixed by where the existing Bayberry Road is. What would likely happen is that basin would be moved down the slope closer to the wetlands in the open space behind the other lots, so that I could get that elevation over there. And then the larger basin would have to be significantly raised, and that cul-de-sac at the end would be elevated quite a bit. But I think we might be able to catch the grade at the intersection. We might have to raise that a little bit, but definitely that end cul-de-sac where we're maybe a foot above grade would elevate probably 7 feet above grade, something like that.
So the reason why I wanted you here tonight, when, Bob said we really don't have a lot to discuss, is, yes, this is, we all know we're looking for, our regs. We're gonna be discussing this. That's why, we're looking at this. We're looking at wet basins. They're not, we took them out of our regs years ago. Mosquito problem,
I was just gonna say, what were the issues, mosquitoes?
I think the biggest thing was mosquitoes, because back then, if you remember, we had Triple E going on. There was so much when Richard McCarthy was here, and
We had a young lady who passed away, a young girl.
yeah, so there was a lot of that going on, and I think we were getting some, back at the selectmen at the time, I think we were getting some phone calls saying, hey, we have these open ponds that are, or Richard was getting the calls, not us, but, so I think that was, because I really don't remember anything major of why it got changed.
I don't either, but supposedly the wet basins, as long as they're deep enough and you have fish and frogs, you won't have mosquitoes.
All right, I think we discussed it, we liked the concept. You had some very nice pictures of some wet basins.
Well, and you
in
look
the
at
area.
DEP, and DEP says it's a better,
Yeah.
Right.
it cleans
viable
the,
solution.
right, and
It's
it
a
cleans it
nice-
out better. So that's why I was just, why would it come out? And the only reason why I could see, and that's why I was looking up, bat houses and those spirals, is it spiral birds? What's the other? Sparrow birds, swallows, whatever they are. There's a couple of different things that, so all of those things I'm looking to put into our new cluster development lot or subdivisions, because
Mr. Chairman, if I could weigh in a little bit too, back before they revised the stormwater handbook, a wet basin basically equated to swamp, a hole in the ground, some cat nine tails growing up. Now they're called, stormwater wetlands, and they direct you to shape and contour the bottom so that you're prescribed certain percentages of low marsh and deep marsh and high marsh to create an environment where you have a lot of different animals that are going to keep the mosquitoes down, like you said. This particular type that we've chosen is a deep basin, so we don't have the different contouring, but we have a pool of water that's a little more aesthetic to.
And to add to that, they also have different side banks for safety. The slopes are tapered down. There's different layers.
Yeah, that was a comment. I think we should look at that and we can.
Because I think that picture that I gave you from, I don't know if it was DEP or somewhere, but it showed the basin, the wet basin that was, I thought it looked nice. So.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, 'cause
And so I think discretion is important, and I think that's obviously what the board should have at their disposal. Do they want to approve a subdivision based on what they see in groundwater conditions and how much fill is coming in, et cetera? Something like this is, for me, looks at low-impact development where you're trying to decentralize the basins. So instead of having 2 large basins, you're doing much smaller ones but spread out. And instead of 26, you might have 20 lots that you're using, which is not, I know, what we would be, looking for. But that helps alleviate concerns where you have large open bodies of water, essentially, that would be collecting or attracting mosquitoes. And be able to dewater them faster because they're smaller and they're collecting less impervious area. That's one of the options that you look at, and that's one of the tools that the Stormwater Handbook is looking at for people to decentralize these larger basins. So ideally, if we could have done that at Bassett Knoll, instead of 3-4 large basins, you have much smaller basins, but again, you're losing lots. But you're also maybe not filling in as much, or you're sort of working with what's there as far as natural topography.
Okay, so you get into
balance.
Again, that's why I understand that, but now you're getting into the groundwater. How do we, our regs are 2 feet, I think, yes, floor, anything less than 2 feet, you have to have a pump and a battery backup and all the other stuff.
And so, and I will add, just to finish with this, so as part of the initial review, they had depths greater than 6 feet, and so then you start to get into registering these as dams. So, and that becomes another issue that I know the town does not want to.
Well, I read your first report, and I was flabbergasted, like, why would we ever want a wet basin? We have you have to go to Army Corps of Engineers or something to have it approved. I mean, it was just crazy.
Just as an example, I did encounter that. We can change the design, so it's not a problem here, but I did, actually, it was for one of the other applicants here, another project in Swansea, where we had no choice just based off the slope of the site. And we did request from DCR to check it out, and they said, no, we don't have to register that as a dam. I think the actual slope on that was 14 feet high, and they didn't say it was a dam, it was a detention basin and everything else like that. So I have confidence that if I was unable to change that design, which I will, and we still had to go to DCR, it would not be registered as a dam. Stormwater Management Handbook says that if you have a dike that's bigger than 6 feet, to check with DCR. So, but I would have confidence that they would say it's allowable.
All right, so just with what I've said about going forward, and again, you have groundwater issues. How do we get, you don't get away. Here we are, we're lowering the site because we're allowing wet basin. Well, that means if we're lowering the site, then we're doing two different things. We're lowering the site because of the wet basin, so we don't bring in a lot of fill and have to clear cut the whole place, but now our foundations are coming up higher. So how do we, is that, again, am I answering my own question by saying, okay, well, some sites just, you need 150-foot frontage, so they spread out, and basically, it's not a cluster because you're going to fill the whole thing.
Right. Yes, I think you are. I think each site becomes its own individual. How do we get it to work with the regulations that we have? And so I think having a separation, 2 feet separation from groundwater, I think is smart. I think it allows, prevents contamination of that groundwater by allowing the soil to filter out impurities or, runoff from parking areas, roadways, etc. So I think it's something important.
Russ, you're on the building. You understand what I'm looking at? Is it comments? You've seen a lot of houses. What do other towns, when you're working for other towns, what are they? I mean, the cluster development has been around, we adopted it years ago. And reading today, with everything that they have on cluster developments, it seems to be changing. You take the piece of property first, and then you basically work backwards and design everything around, obviously what's there.
Yeah, some of the recent developments that I've seen and reviewed have gone to low-impact development, so smaller bioretentions. Some of them have been, because they are close to groundwater, they've had to line them, so you're getting water quality, not necessarily infiltration. I've seen other towns stay away from the basins and make sure that whatever is designed does dry out, but there's no standing water. Sometimes you do have areas where you have to have standing water basins. They're not thrilled with it, but they're typically held as private entities that are maintained by not the town. That's kind of the trend over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years that I've seen.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you after I asked your opinion, but I just wanted to ask that. What do you,
thing, because I've seen it with the builder that I work with, and, you know, he'll go in putting a development like this, and, you know, with lots smaller than this, you know, 12,000, 15,000, and it all looks beautiful with all these trees, but by the time you put a house, a driveway, and a septic system in, like,
Oh,
that lot's
and-
cleared.
And a septic
Like,
system to boot.
Yeah, there's no trees left. But if you want that open space around it, and making the smaller lots, you know, it's a trade-off. You can't have them both.
Well, I think we, you know, one thing is, it's gonna be a case-by-case basis. We can't, I don't think we're gonna be able to say, we can have our regs, I think, when we go forward, but I don't think it's gonna be able to say this is it for everywhere, because,
No, probably just guidelines that
Yeah.
we try to follow, but like,
Try and keep
I don't think I've seen anything over
certain
the past
slope or
4.5
something.
years that isn't, we have to
consistent.
make special adjustments, because each lot, each
Yeah.
Each site's
proposal
different.
is different, you know, and that's what we think. But what you're proposing has no effect on this, though, correct? This,
No, it does.
in what regard? I mean.
Everything that I'm discussing.
But, I understand, but if this meets the regs, how can we impose anything other than that on it?
It needs a special permit,
Because it's a cluster.
because it's a cluster.
All right.
So what's the special permit, you know, is this, if the special permit's not approved, then they do a regular subdivision.
And that reduces the number of lots significantly, I would imagine.
Well, they have 150.
150 feet, yeah.
You know, a lot of these aren't just 100 feet. You know, I looked at the plan earlier today, and I think they were 110, 120, you know, there was quite a few.
With the
100.
frontage, so with the frontages around the cul-de-sac, like I said, we kept them a little narrow, just, that's the nature of the cul-de-sac lot. But across the straightaway, we're at 140, 137, 147, you know, across, so we're close to 150 across that width.
And I don't mind, you know, I think the cul-de-sacs being 100 foot at the frontage is fine, because they all flare back
Right.
where the house is. And,
So what I'm hearing is really, to me, sounds like kind of what we're presenting here, is we've opened up the frontages of all the lots. We're about 140, 135 through there, where you said, you know, before they were 110, 100. I think there was one that was a little less than 100. And it really did choke the grading. Like you said, we had to really angle down and still have fill in between the lots.
so yes, now you're at, how many lots?
26.
You're at 26 lots, and 4 and 5, what did I say, 21, what was the other part, 21, and then, there's nothing on this plan, is there, do you have side measurements from the houses, I guess?
I
You
show
know,
the
is
zoning
there
set.
something that we can impose, that the houses go into the property lines? Is, you know, minimum of, I don't know. Do you have 20 feet? Do you have 18 feet? You know, 10 feet's just not gonna be, it's not enough if you're filling over 4 feet. So I guess, can we say we're not gonna fill over 4 feet and keep the cluster as at a minimum of no more than 4 feet from street grade? Or can we say that we're gonna have 20-foot, a house would be 20 foot from the sideline? Keep the plan the way it is, but make sure that we have wider house from property line, so you can do some better grading.
Yeah, I think if you closely look at the grading here, it's much, much better. It's nothing like what you're used to seeing at the other site or what was originally proposed. I mean, we're only a couple feet above the road surface with all of the lots on this side. You know, 2 feet to the garage. You know, this is maybe 4 feet here, but then we get back to 2 feet. And then in between, we're right back down to existing grade. In between, we're at 99, and maybe we're filling 6 inches through here just to maintain the pitch. All of these, you see, there's only like 2 feet above the road. This is 3 feet above the road to the garage. This is maybe 1.5 feet above the road.
Can I ask, does staggering the houses do anything if you alternate, one's closer to the front? Does that help with the grading a little bit? You get some...
It's all based on the property
It's all
lines.
gonna be the
Looking at the as-bills that I saw today,
Yeah.
that was to me, that stood out the most was, okay, we only had 14 feet to grade. Well, no wonder that. No wonder he's grading it the way he is, because he's got no choice. So if that was, the other side had 18 feet, and it was the garage side, well, if he had 20 feet, yes, Bob.
How about if you limit the proper foundation not to be more than a certain amount over the road? You could limit the foundation not to be more than 5 feet over the front of the road, and that would help with grading in the front yard.
And we talked, that's what I talked about before. The only problem with that is now we're imposing something that we don't know how do we take that in the water table? Are we going to make a requirement that they can't meet? That was my, that's why I'm struggling with, how do you do that? I think the biggest thing is the side yard of the houses. If we can make the side yard of the houses more, to give them more room to grade, then you're eliminating, the.
I know they're not all exactly the same, but what do you have for spacing from the housing to the property line? No. I'm looking at the scale and I'm looking at the drawing and I'm saying 25 feet, in some cases 40 feet.
Yeah, so that's about 20. I drew the setback line on here. So these are all greater than 20, for sure.
So this setback,
That
feet is 10 feet.
Yeah, that feet line is the 10-foot line. So these are far, like 25. Even around the cul-de-sac, we get a little tight here. This is 10, but then the other house is over 20. These are a little bit tighter, but if we really needed to, we might be able to take some away from somewhere else. But in general, I'm showing 20. It's 18. Like I said, it gets a little tighter in the cul-de-sac, but out here, we're well over 20.
So I think that's one way of looking at it and putting that into, if we're gonna do a cluster development, then you have a minimum side yard of 20 feet. Which, as a builder, you're gonna look at it and say, well, geez, the frontage is only 100 feet and I got 20 feet on both sides. Yeah, well, maybe you gotta go a little wider than 100 feet. 100 feet is, not gonna work. Yes.
Our Article 18, which is our ARC article, requires 30 feet between buildings. You could do something like that to maybe require 50 feet, so you have 50 feet of grading between two buildings. They could still be 10 feet off the property line if they had to be, but they had to be 40 feet of the next one. So
yeah, I looked at that too, but they can't, because your grading is to your property line. You can't grade over somebody else's line. I can't run my line, my grading onto, and pitch my water over here.
But if you're the developer, you can. If you're developing all these lots, you're gonna grade each lot so that blends into the lot next to it.
But doesn't it say that you can't drain your water onto your neighbor's property?
Well, I'm not saying drain on the neighbor's property, you'll just have that much more room to create whatever elevation change you need to create whatever kind of swell is necessary to move the water away.
So these are things that I think we're gonna be looking at, Steve, going forward. Again, this plan is in front of us. It's, wet basins is gonna be, I still haven't found out. I don't know if Ed Buckley has decided on his opinion on wet basins. I know he said, his biggest thing was maintenance. What's the maintenance plan? What's the cost? His basins now that he has, says he just needs a full-time person just taking care of them.
Yeah, our goal is to provide him with something that has less maintenance, so it'd be less mowing, he asked about the chain link fence around. He said that's difficult to maintain under, so, we're proposing a post and rail fence that you can just mow under easily. And you don't have to mow the surface water, you just basically leave it be, so. And we haven't met again with Ed, basically, because we weren't sure if, it was being entertained fully by the board.
Now I'm going to throw one more problem into the mix. Bayberry is not a town, is not a accepted way. All the way from Pleasant Street all the way into here is not accepted. None of Ram's Head, Bayberry, none of those roads are accepted. And as I mentioned a couple of meetings ago, I think I found an account with $17,400 or something, but Maureen found it. That I did tell Ed Buckley that, what's $17,000 going to do for us? Those roads do need to be recoded. They have to be. It went through so many developers, 2 or 3 of them. From one guy left. The planning board back then approved a modification to reduce or eliminate one sidewalk, so they did one sidewalk. I think Federoff was that developer that came in front of the planning board. So there's been multiple modifications through the years, and what we have there is what's there, but the roads are in tough shape. There's no way that we're gonna, how do we get those roads paved? Ed's working on getting prices for it. My thought with this one, because this road cannot be accepted unless the other road's accepted. So looking at this, do we say, okay, well, this is under basically the rules and regs that we have. We look at allowing wet basin. This is one more lot than I originally said that was originally approved. Do we let them have that extra lot and pave over to?
In exchange for giving us some money to do some paving?
No money. They have to pave it. We don't want to get involved with, but under the special permit, they would have to pay from Pleasant Street to this, and the town council will do the paperwork to present at a town meeting, because Bayberry will have to get accepted first before they are completed with this. So, the spacing, the property line distance, it sounds like they have exactly what I think is going to be the biggest concern going forward is the side yards. So I'm going to throw that out there. If we, part of the special permit, we say that, put a top coat on top of Bayberry to Pleasant Street. The town will take care of the paperwork to have it brought to the town meeting for acceptance. No more sidewalks, because like I said, they already had a modification approved from the planning board in the file. And then we give Ed the $17,000 and tell him to go, go put in for a grant, go do something, put into, he's picking roads, but at least this will be, this will be approved and accepted. So.
What do you want Mr. Watson to do?
Thank you. I was just about to ask that.
Again, I think with what I said, I think as long as at the cul-de-sac area, it looks like some of those are, maybe 10 feet. I don't think that's going to be enough if you have more than 4 feet of fill.
Well, I think Bob's idea is good, and I think it is possible that you can
regulate,
put a distance between, and if one is close, then the other one has to be not so close.
And we
Steve's idea.
And we make that part of the special permit conditions for the cluster.
Well, I think the wet basin is where we got to start, and so we need to get Mr.
If we don't do the wet basin, then this won't become a cluster.
Yeah, so
I think
we got to
that,
figure out what he says on that.
I think because they have over 8 feet of fill, if I remember correctly, there was a lot of fill that you would need if you had a regular,
The fill that we showed was for the sewer, so we've taken care of that. I think all we'd have to fill would be the end of that cul-de-sac. You know, we would have to. fill
right, at that end, not the
Yeah.
whole road. No,
Right.
I'm talking about that end.
Yeah.
Where the land was.
So we could do that, and then this basin would likely move down here closer to the wetland, where it's low enough that we could still fill the basin and get the piping open. So
The other advantage
it would
of,
just be more impact to
the other advantage of having you here, and this is why I wanted to go back to the old days, you're hearing everything that we're saying firsthand. You're gonna go back and you're gonna make it so much easier for these guys, you're gonna make it so much easier for us,
Easier for me.
easier for you, you know what the concerns are, you know what we're looking, you know, and I probably, as chairman, should have done it a long time ago, bringing you back in, but.
Well, we weren't.
No, I know,
busy for-
no, I know, but I'm glad you're here, because it's not a waste of your time.
Right, exactly.
It's gonna save a lot for moving forward for applicants coming in front of us, and it's gonna help Bob out a lot. Taking a lot of pressure off of him to try to keep everybody on the same page. So if we do the wet basin, I would, myself, just reading on what wet basins are and what they do, they seem to do a better job than dry basins. We just have to make sure that we have mosquito control. We have a wet basin modern design, not just a pit. We have sloped banks, so kids aren't gonna go to a wet basin, and if they slide down the first set, they're gonna stop and not keep going. We don't want these big open ponds. You know, it's always been an issue having open bodies of water around town. We've got these fences. So.
Hey, I would say during construction that, or as part of the permitting process, that there be, very clear instructions that there would need to be as-bills during the construction of those basins, because they need to be looked at a higher level than just digging a pit. And so maybe there's as-bills at certain points that need to be reviewed and okayed, and site visits, that sort of thing during construction.
And make notes of that, because that's stuff that we shouldn't forget. You go to Mattapoisett, you get a foundation, you get your building permit, and you don't start building until you give him an as-built or your foundation. And I thought that was great, because, boy, it took me off the hook worrying about, where I'm supposed to be? As soon as I gave him the foundation as-built plan, then he tells you, okay, start building. So, I think asking for as-built along the way is a lot easier than what we've done or what we've had to do for Bassett Knoll in the past. It's been a struggle getting this thing done, and not recently. Thank you. So, with all that said, I don't want to take any more time. I think,
So just
are we,
to
well,
clarify.
let
I'm
me,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to
Yep.
clarify for you.
Thank you.
I think, are we in agreements to the wet basin?
Well, I am if Ed is.
And I think we all are if it
Consensus,
is.
right, if Ed's okay with it, okay by us, I think it's a nice, the wet basin's a nice idea, I think.
The literature we had made it sound great.
So, maybe you can you can talk to Ed, because I know I've had a few letters, and I've spoken to him a couple of times, and he's still kind of on the fence. I think his biggest thing is maintenance cost, and what's it entail for them and after this is approved? I think that's his,
Yeah, I agree.
because I didn't hear anything about mosquitoes or kids falling in or anything of that. It was all about what is he gonna have to do with these after, because I think he's really having a.
It's something new for him, because I don't think he had that in Plymouth. And
Right.
It certainly doesn't have to hear.
So I guess that's your consensus. Wet basin, we're gonna let you proceed with that.
Yeah, and we can talk to Ed too and just make sure.
Well, let
you
him
guys-
talk to Ed
Sure.
first, so that way it's not gonna be confusing.
Perfect.
He's gonna discuss with Ed. Bob, these guys can discuss it first, and then, obviously, you can call, I'd rather have you call Steve than Ed,
Sure, yep.
because then we're only gonna get another letter, and
Yep.
it may not be what Ed's not here, Steve is. So discuss it with Steve, and Steve will, and Bob will discuss it with Ed.
And then on the matter of, we've been able to increase the amount of area and frontage on the lots. It sounds like we're headed in the right direction. We have.
I've been fighting to go back to the original approval of the 21 lots, or 20 lots.
I don't know.
21,
if that was
4,
originally
5,
approved
21.
that way, right?
Way back, what we've, maybe not the approval, what was always presented, it went from, so I would be willing to leave the plan the way it is if we can,
I'm willing to give a lot.
we're gonna make a condition that it gets paved out,
Yeah.
Berry Hill gets, Berry Hill gets paved. So, the plan can, Bayberry, I'm sorry. Bayberry gets paved out to Pleasant Street. That will be something that we will have to get Ed on board to figure out. Because again, Ed does a great job, but we're not gonna be rebuilding this road. We're not gonna be grinding off the pavement and taking material out, and we're gonna pave it so it lasts for, if he has to chip seal or whatever, and, whatever it's gonna do to make that road last is what I'm looking for. I don't think, we're not gonna be, asking them to.
No mill and overlay then, is what you're saying.
I've seen a lot of success lately with the chip seal.
Yeah, it's, we're asking for something to be done. I don't want it to be, cost of 2 lots. I just don't think that's fair. I'd rather not even approve, I'd rather just approve this as a regular conventional subdivision. So I think in the long run, this is gonna be, something that we can look at going forward. And the extra lot is, for helping the town get that thing paved, so we're not dealing with all of that. Does that sound like,
So this is a public hearing, what's the time to act, and when are we going to have another hearing on this?
I think we need to fill out an extension form.
that's up to them. Any questions on, that's somebody's car,
July 30th is the time to write.
July 30th. So, our next,
You want another one?
yeah.
Yeah, well, Dan can fill out, that's fine.
So, is there any questions?
Well, I have a lot of questions, and I ought to have even more. When do you want to come back, and what do we, the first thing we need is to talk to Ed Buckley and get a yes or no out of him.
We need to discuss the paving out there, and we need to discuss wet basins with Ed Buckley. Yes.
Both of these things, so everybody's going to go talk to Ed Buckley.
I will send a message to Ed tomorrow, set up a busy time.
Put them on for the next meeting, August 1st. I'm sure they want to keep it moving.
August 1st. We'll have his.
Okay.
His acceptance, I guess you could say, and, but the configuration of the lots, again, if you could look at those two, if you look at that plan, again, when you go back to your office one of these days and see, you hear what we're saying about the distance from the house to the property lines, so if you can do something to keep the number of lots you have, but create a little more here and there, I think that'll be ideal. Some of those, being just 10 feet, these houses are 60 feet long, just about, I think. Agreed? Burke?
Yeah, that sounds good. time to act, what are you putting for a date?
September 19th, the day after the meeting.
Okay.
Well, I guess it'd be, well, we'll go the 21st, just so it's ensuring it's after that.
Sure.
Yep.
Time on the first?
Let's put it down for, again, 6:15.
We've got 6:15 already.
Oh, public hearing for AD, Holden's, oof. Let's put it before that one, because that one might be a little long.
September 26th.
Let's say 6:10, because basically this one should be a quick one, because it's really just giving them direction, so 6:10 on August 1st, this will be continued to. And then we can give you some direction at that point, and then hopefully after that, then we're...
Bert, hold on. Put it together.
All right, so that hearing is continued until 6:10 on August 1st. Thank you.
Last time, we took in tandem this matter and a carryover onto
Yep.
the lot release in
Yep, we have...
Raynham Preserve, and I was just,
We have a Form J, and at the last meeting, we did have a dollar amount from Niche, which was 400-something thousand. That was typed out. I don't have that figure in front of me.
I want to say 470, I don't have the exact.
Yeah.
He knows what it is.
I was going to ask you, I don't. I looked at my files,
Well,
I never actually got the letter, but...
We're just gonna say that we will, the Form J will be signed with you submitting cash bond of whatever the dollar amount is.
Yeah.
And we will sign that and release those lots.
Okay, well, would you sign that and...
We will
leave with
sign that
Maureen
now and
so that
release, and so the
when I
lots
bring her
can get...
proof, this is going to be a cash surety, not the
Right.
tripartite or anything. We're going to deliver the money to the town treasurer. Oh, actually, I don't know. Would I normally give that to you, Maureen, as opposed to the...
Along with the W-9.
Yeah, okay.
What I did, just so the board knows, at the last meeting, I did ask Maureen to check on the tri-pi agreement that we have in place. She emailed the gentleman at the bank. We do have the funds. The funds are secured with $644,000 in their account, so, and there's no expiration date on it, just so everybody is up on that one.
And you're actually ahead because additional work has been done. Goldfinch Drive is being prepared for sidewalks, curbing, and paving now, so.
So we're gonna sign that, we're gonna hold it, you bring in the check,
Perfect, thank you.
then that'll be all set. One
Thank you.
concern that I went out there and I took a ride when I was driving by, they put the telephone pole right at 2 feet from the pavement on the phase 2 there. And when you park, when you're leaving that entrance and you look, that pole's right in your way. I thought we had in our regs that telephone poles had to be a certain distance from entrances, and I
I
didn't go
believe
try to chase
that,
that.
doesn't TMLP,
Tell that to TMLP. They
doesn't,
come where they
yeah,
want.
but
Well,
doesn't TMLP go through a process with the select board
No,
for that?
no, they go out, when they go out with the plans, you give them to them
Yeah.
on AutoCAD, then they draw their plan. Then they go out there, not by survey, but by pulled tape, and they just put stakes out.
It's just
That's
really
what they
close,
put 'em in.
and I know TMLP, I know they're responsible, but I know also that it's somewhere in our regs that,
I can't remember the number, I want to say 20, 25, something like that.
well, I think it's something we should be looking at, because again, I don't know if you had time to drive through there.
I saw it,
It's right, it's like,
we'll call TMLP and let them know.
because there's nothing, the only thing that's tied into it is what's on Locust Street. It's not tied in, going into the subdivision yet. The pipe is, exactly.
No, that actually wasn't part of the original design. That was an after-the-fact change by TMLP.
All right, so
That was a loop, they looped the electric system, so if the service breaks in one end, they can feed it from the other. And that was a change right at the last minute, just as we were doing that. That was not originally part of the design.
Okay, so I don't know, I think it's a site issue. I think it's a problem right at the very entrance there, and I don't know how,
You can put a request into them to move it. I've done that before. We've had developments where you had pole issues, but you gotta put in a request to TMLP to move it.
so, I don't know if any, other members want to drive by, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure
I've seen
you
it,
must
sure,
have.
sure.
But I know when I was driving out, it was,
I'll call Dana Sullivan tomorrow.
I was just really surprised
express,
that it was there.
Okay.
All right,
I'll do
so.
that. Thank you.
Your agreements, Form Js are all signed, so whenever you come out with your money.
We only signed one, is that enough? We don't need the second one.
Just one so I can record it, and then I'll bring back the copy of the recorded one to you.
Oh, it's coming up.
Okay, so, that's done, and I'm gonna run through this end stuff, so Burke doesn't have to do it. Invoices and bills, we sent down, we signed that. Minutes to the two.
Make a motion to waive the reading and approve the minutes of June 6, 2019, and June 20, 2019.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence. We have one thing, Mr. Gordon Luciano is looking for a TIF member. I know everybody's got.
I think Mr. Andrade would do a great job as a TIF member.
So, all in favor of me?
If you want to, I think I was on that.
Would you like to be TIF?
I don't know that I want to be, but I think I was. Last we had,
I think you were last time.
yeah.
I amend Mr. Fountain's motion to make Russ, appoint Russ Driscoll as the TIF Planning Board's representative.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
How do you amend Mr. Fountain's motion?
He did a heck of a job on it.
No, anybody can amend a motion.
Bob, thank you for.
So do they have something, did they have something going on that?
No.
No.
We have a letter from Ed Buckley on Cumberland Farms, but that's not in front of us until, so Ed's ahead of us. I would suggest that when Cumberland Farms does come in front of us, that we get these. CVS is.
Steve and I did an inspection out there Monday morning. All the improvements, other than some stabilization, have been completed. The building is complete. It's ready for occupancy. I'm going to submit 5 copies of the as-built plan. I have the engineering report, I have the sign-offs. Steve calculated there's about $8,000 in a surety that should be placed for the final landscaping to stabilize. They did supply us today with an $8,000 surety bond.
And they did a surety bond for $8,000 rather than cash?
Yes, sir.
They must be hurting that,
Didn't sell many drugs this month.
it's Demoulas.
I'm submitting this
Oh,
tomorrow
that's right,
for the record and asking for your approval to move forward and give them an occupancy permit tomorrow so they can open on Sunday.
So I make a motion to allow CVS to obtain their occupancy permit.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Per Bob's discretion for making sure everything's set? All in favor?
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
Yes.
Yep.
We have Whippoorwill Woods Road completion. To the members of the planning board, we have reached out to Highway Superintendent Ed Buckley in regards to finishing Cardinal Circle before the end of this paving season. As expected, we fully intend on completing every part of our obligation. It is also our intention to finish Partridge Lane before 2020. We will be in constant contact with all affected town departments. So that's probably in response to our notifying them that they get in touch with Ed Buckley.
And they're also getting in touch with all the individual owners on Cardinal to let them know what their schedule is, so hopefully that they're all on the same page and it gets done.
Last thing I have, we've asked Niche Engineering just to give us an estimate on helping us with our writing up rules and regs and any redrawings that we need when we start looking into our whether drainage or road layouts or whatever. And I have a scope of work. Niche Engineering will work with the town planner, highway superintendent, coordinate with highway superintendents, planning board, compensation for additional services provided will be in accordance with the standard contract terms. Niche Engineering agreement with the client dated March 1st. The cost of these services are $3,500. This is based on $205 an hour, and this is giving us about 15 to 20 hours. And I spoke to Steve prior to the meeting, and Steve said that he knows how important this is going to be for, not only for the town, but also for them to be involved with this, so it's just going to make life easier for everybody.
Do we have the money?
We have funds for,
I think we have about that, I'll have to double check. We have about that much in our review account.
but we also have funds that is planning board's discretion to where to use it,
We have those, we have a lot of those, yes.
which we have $300,000.
That's plenty.
So,
That's Caribbean.
Shouldn't have said that in front of him.
so we do have funds.
You don't get to go on the vacation.
So I know, we've been talking about the rules and regs, and, Bob is getting ready to start rolling. We're going to start having meetings on it, so make a motion that we approve this separate contract from our regular contract to allow Niche to be part of our rules and regs going forward, and allowing up to $3,500. Any change after the $3,500 needs to be readdressed by the board again. Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
And
That's a truck and terminal.
today's I did read it before I got here. Let me pass that to Maureen. Make a copy, and you'll get a copy, and we did that. Plan signed.
It was a real quick record set in 20 minutes. Basically, what piece of information come out of there is South Coast Rail should be in operation by September of 2023.
Okay.
Even when I see it.
Excuse me? No, it's just the Middleborough line. Oh, no, phase two. I don't know that I'll ever be able to report on that in my lifetime.
You have a public hearing on August 1st for the trucking terminal, ATG Land Holdings, which is going to be Lot 22 Paramount Drive. We are going to be holding a preliminary submission meeting on Monday at 11 o'clock in this room with all the department heads. John, I sent it out as an email. John said he was going to be there as representing the planning board. Just want to make sure we don't have more than the
Can't have three.
allowed, so just so you know, John will be there, we can't have three, so if anyone else wants to come, let me know in advance. And on August 13th, I'm going to have my first meeting with Grant Hill from Serped, who is going to be spearheading the new master plan for the town. It's going to be through the planning board. There will be no master plan committee. It's going to be, he's going to do all the work, and they're going to run it through the planning board. So there'll be no, like you had before, where there was a committee who put the information together. Serped's going to take this and run with it.
Can I just say one thing? Every time that planning board, it's up to us, and I agree with you, but we just have people that don't trust the planning board, and every time, we come up with our master plan, they're gonna say, well, that was because there was
I don't think-
developers or builders on the board.
I don't think it's a trust issue. I think that the master plan is going to be drafted, and it's going to be brought to this board. We're going to have a public hearing on it. So it's not going to be something that the planning board is writing and is going to be putting it out. Everyone's going to know that the Serpent's putting it together based on our old plan and based on their recommendations.
I'm just putting that out there because that's always seems to be
The whole idea of us doing, is that something that came from the selectmen? Because I was at a selectmen's meeting and they were looking for a representative from the planning board to be on that committee. So obviously they've changed their mind on which way they want to go.
I'm not sure we talked about having a committee. We talked about having Serpent work it out for us.
Okay.
And this is their
I was just
recommendation.
curious, yeah.
That we let them run with it. And if it's a document that you're not comfortable with, then you can always go back and have a committee. But
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think, we have the 2000 one.
Yeah, 20 years ago, there were citizen committees, and they were looking for input and questionnaires.
We were on.
and- Well, I didn't remember you were, but I knew I was.
It was put in, it was
Yeah.
put in because
Okay.
we were,
Holy Moses, we had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 committees.
Yeah.
We had housing, transportation, open
and the
space.
6 committees didn't do, it didn't amount to a hill of beans because it's, 138 didn't
That's
get
been
what it
sitting on a
was.
shelf less than, what, less than 19 years.
I mean, there's a lot in there that did get done. The town hall got built, a lot of things that you read through that did get done, but then there's a lot of things that didn't get done. So I don't have a problem with it. All I would say is if the selectmen, you might want to just let the selectmen know what Serpent's,
I'll keep you informed as we go through the process.
all right?
Okay.
I am
No, this is going to the-
excusing myself.
All we do in between here is short pause for a good cause.
Sure.
Be right back.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I'm going to walk around too then. We had a 5-minute break.
I had enough time to go 5 times out there, so I was, the 6:45, I was watching you guys on TV.
No, we're not back? We are back, okay. All right, Raynham Planning Board, we took a short break. We are ready to go again. We have a public hearing on Riverwalk Adult Retirement Community Plan.
Before we start, Mr. Chairman, if I may, as you know, I spoke to you earlier this week. Maybe I misunderstood it. We had Steve here because we had a new plan that was being presented. And I thought at our last meeting, we had decided that we were going to have the engineer, our engineer, at the meetings when we review a new plan. Now, Nitch is not the engineer for this particular project, so I had called
Right.
you and said, hey, we
Right.
should be asking, what is it, S&C?
I called
We-
J.C.
Yeah.
They weren't done with their last review, and they had no one available to come to the meeting tonight.
So they had no, but we did invite them.
Yes, sir.
But my point is, they didn't have to be ready for the review, because the whole purpose of having the engineering group here was to hear what we have to say. As Dan mentioned before, it's good that Steve's here, because he hears what we say about the new plan. So I understand if they couldn't be here, they didn't have someone, that's great. But the purpose is not to come here and read to us their review of it, because we'll see that documentation. The purpose is to be part of the proceedings. So, because this, I'm sure we're not going to settle this whole thing and approve a plan tonight. Could you put out an invitation for whatever next time we put it on the agenda? I'd like to have them here, just as we had an itch for everybody else's plan. Does that seem reasonable, Mr. Chairman?
Well, it seems reasonable, and we wanted them here. We asked them to be
Yep,
here.
we did ask them to be. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it properly, that's all.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I thought that it would at least be worth, because the plan has changed quite a bit.
Right, that's my point, yeah.
To hear what they have to say, and we can go home and think about it, and hopefully be ready for the next meeting with the review.
Okay, we're on the same page. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure. All right, I'm sorry.
No problem. Excuse me, Attorney Ryan Prophet on behalf of Raynham Riverwalk LLC. As you know, this is the adult retirement community plan in front of you for the definitive subdivision plan and the special permit located off Route 44. The last time we were here in front of you, we presented the plan. I believe everybody confirmed that they were comfortable confirming the plan, subject to a couple questions for the Zoning Board of Appeals. We all agreed that Mr. Iafredi was going to give us a punch list of issues that we needed to bring before the Zoning Board of Appeals. He provided that list. We did bring that list in for variances in front of the ZBA. There were three really. One was for the 75 setback from any improvements. We asked for a variance for the 75-foot setback with regards to the back lots. I believe it was lots 34 through 45. That variance was granted. We asked for a variance to allow the RV storage area to be placed in the 75-foot buffer zone and the emergency access. The ZBA granted the variance with regards to the emergency access, but denied the variance as to placing the RV storage area in the 75-foot buffer zone. We've made a change to the plan to address that, and we've moved the storage facility for the RV. And we've also taken away any construction of any units within the residential portion of the property.
And that was based on the town meeting vote?
That was based on the town meeting vote, and we requested a variance to allow building there, but we withdrew it prior to the ZBA. So that has been taken off the table. We are not going to construct.
If I could cut in, the ZBA doesn't even have the power to do that, so even if they granted it, it's moot, because they don't have the power to grant a use variance.
Yeah.
So they can't say you can do it or not allowed. That'd be like saying, okay, I want a variance for a strip joint in residential, it's not allowed. They can't grant a variance for non-allowed use. I mean, if Bob Newton was here, he would tell you all that. But a use variance is not allowed.
We withdrew it anyway, so it wasn't an issue. So we are here tonight. We know we don't have the review letter from JC, but those issues are minor issues. They do deal with drainage, and actually the revisions to the plan will even decrease the runoff. Steve Giosef from SciTech Engineering will talk more about the revisions to the plan, his conversations with JC Engineering. So we're really hoping tonight that you can approve both the subdivision and definitive subdivision plan and the special permit, subject to JC's final review, which we've been told is minor. So I'll turn it over to Steve Giosef this time.
Well, before you go further, I didn't know you guys were even coming in front of us tonight, so I haven't had a chance to look at anything. I know there was a ZBA decision, so I'd like to see the plan that goes along with that. I could probably get it from Maureen or Bob, what was presented, because I read their decision, but it doesn't refer to any plan, and it's a little vague. And the other issue is the buffer is located in a residential zone where no part of an ARC is allowed in a residential zone, so I think there could be an issue there. In other words, the buffer strip is from a residential zone line or a residential property. It's not from 300 feet into a residential property.
It's actually
it's not, you can't have a buffer zone 200-300 feet past a residential zone line. It's from the residential zone line, so that residential zone line, that's where the buffer zone would be from, not from the property line. And I think we discussed that, and when we went before, it was kind of under the assumption you were going to get the town meeting article passed, and that didn't happen. So that could create an issue. So
Could
that's...
we get a copy of the plan? Because I'm
Yeah, I was going to say, those there?
In other words, you can't, it's very...
Well, it's only one.
There's only one copy?
Yeah, that's all it's down to.
It's not highlighted, the zone line, but it cuts through a bunch of lots. And so it has the ARC can't be in a residential zone. And so therefore, in my opinion, no part of it can be. So you can't have lot areas. You can shake your head, Steve, but it's not an allowed use in that zone. So if you're... If the ARC is the perimeter of the ARC, so I don't think that passes muster, and I think the buffer zone, by definition, is from the residential zone line, so that could be an issue. That's why I want to see the plan that was presented, and I want to see I want to see the plan that was presented at zoning. I wasn't there, and I want to follow their decision, because their decision didn't specify anything except the lot numbers. It just said a buffer strip behind these lots, but it didn't.
Absolutely.
So
Actually,
I want to see how those lots, maybe this was the plan that was shown, but I want to see what was shown.
Mr. Gallagher, that's actually incorrect. The ARC bylaw makes it very specific that the buffer zone is from the perimeter of the property.
No, it doesn't.
Actually,
Absolutely not. I wrote the bylaw, so don't, I wrote it, so it does not say that.
screening shall be 75 feet in width to all abutting properties that are either zoned residential or currently have residential use. An ARC must provide, as part of the common land, a screening zone along the entire perimeter. It says it specifically.
Yeah,
that
but
it
the
is
ARC isn't allowed in the residential A zones. The perimeter of the ARC goes to the business sign, so that's the perimeter. I mean, I wrote it, I was there when it was written, so I understand what it was written for, but it says a 75-foot buffer strip from a residential zone.
Yeah.
So the residential zone is the zone line.
No, it doesn't. It says to all abutting properties.
So that would mean,
Abutting properties.
so if that's the case, then, say you were 500 more feet into the residential zone with your perimeter of your property line, you can't put a buffer there.
All right, could you two?
I just don't agree. Well, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Actually, I actually think it's fact, but.
All right. In looking at this plan, we have some lots that are completely in residential.
No, all lots should be, lots, yes, but buildings are not.
Any part of the ARC can't be beyond this line. You can't have part of an ARC in a residential zone.
For instance, what is going on?
You can't have this road.
Hold on,
Lot 35 is totally in a residential zone, along with 34, 33.
We left those in. It's Lot 35 and Lot 34 and Lot 35 are basically becoming common land.
Okay, so I'm looking at an old plan.
No, we just have kept.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go to, so, this notation was added, for the record, Steve Gioso at SciTech. The four lots you're referring to, which are in the residential zone, which we could not build a structure on those lots, have been designated as non-buildable lots. So although they're shown on the plan, they're shown with the lot lines, they are specifically noted on the recordable plans that they are not to be considered buildable lots, as the ARC bylaw is currently worded. As you know, the applicant applied for a potential zoning change. If that were to go ahead in the future, we wouldn't have to come back to the board, because those lots would be designated here, and we'd be able to present the lot placement to you, and that we're not showing now. When you go to the construction plans, you'll see there are no houses, there's no clearing proposed on those lots. They're just lot lines being created on the plan, but they are also being designated as non-buildable parcels, which you have the ability to approve as a planning board, a non-buildable lot.
I didn't think they could even be lots.
You can create a lot. Yeah.
You know better than I.
They are specifically noted as non-buildable.
You can create a lot if you want to, but if you go try to get a building permit from them, they won't give it to you. A lot that doesn't have enough frontage, doesn't have this, it's in the wrong zone, whatever.
Okay.
So if they want to create it, then yes.
Well, it's part of the ARC, so they can't create it in a residential zone. I mean, it's not allowed in the residential zone. That was the whole point in getting the zoning change. And,
Well, they're not allowed to have a buildable lot, and they won't get a building permit, but why can't they create a lot if they want to?
Because they're not allowed to have an ARC in a residential zone. That's part of an ARC.
It's not an ARC, it's just
It's part of it.
they're creating a piece of land, and they're setting off boundaries for a piece of land.
What about
that's
the
not
road?
buildable.
What about the roadway?
What, the roadways? Okay,
is in the residential zone. And if you can't do an ARC in a residential zone, you sure can't use lot area.
So, Chris, I had the same question and the same concern. So I reached out to town council, and he wrote me an opinion letter. And he does not believe that it's against the bylaw to have an improvement over a residential zone. You just can't have a structure on a residential zone. So this letter, the way I read it, while prohibiting the construction of an ARC dwelling in a residential district may be true, I would suggest that a portion of a street in a residential district that has no dwelling construction on it would not be prohibited by the zoning bylaw.
That's a lawyer's opinion, I don't have to go by it.
So there's a lot of
I mean, there's a lot.
I knew this was going to be an issue, so I reached out to him just to have this for you. So, you have different opinions on all this whole article, so it's a different.
Yes, no, I was there when it was written, and that was the full intention of it. The full intention for not having things go through the buffer zone such as that roadway, I don't believe is allowed use, so I think they granted
I don't think that's
something that, according to section 2 of the zoning bylaw, they're not allowed to grant. I mean, it's a use variance. It specifically says you can do an easement for utilities, and you can do a main access road.
You really need technically get a little bit of this one, too.
Relief on the buffer, you think that's a use variance?
When we first did this, when we discussed what to ask for, we asked for relief on the buffer, not relief on the use. So I don't think it was applied for properly.
Mr. Gallagher, the ZBA made the decision. I don't understand why there's an issue. It was not appealed.
No, I know that, but I'm saying I don't believe whether they made the decision or not, I don't think it was within their power, because I look at it as a use variance, because it's not listed. Like, you can do these 10 uses, but if 11 and 12 aren't listed, you can't do them. You can't say, well, they're not listed, so I can do them if they, So that's my opinion, is it's a use variance and it's not allowed. And
so are you telling me that you're going to deny the...
All right.
I'm not telling you anything. I'm just saying that's my opinion on their variance, but as it sits, I won't agree with the portions of it in the residential zone.
Okay.
And I want to look at the zoning plan that was submitted. We got the agenda yesterday, and I came up, so there would be 4 of us. So I haven't had a chance to review any of this stuff, because I didn't know you guys were coming back in this quick until, the agenda went out yesterday. So I wanted to have that plan here tonight. I wanted to review things, so I'm not going to act on anything right now.
We're not, I would like the engineer to at least be heard before you make a decision.
Yeah, I'm not going to take it on subject to, I think he's got minor things when we haven't even got a letter from the guy. We have nothing from the engineer.
Did I ask you to vote on anything?
No,
I said
they
I just want to listen to the engineer.
Yeah, no, they did. I agree with you, Burke.
Okay.
Okay, so on the specific changes that we've made to the plan since the last time we were here, as you recall, we did come in the last time with a change to the access from the cul-de-sac on Wall Street out to Church Street. The original design called for a more formal roadway here, full road construction all the way out to Church Street. Clearly, as a result of a lot of the concerns raised by board members and the neighbors, that at the last meeting was eliminated, that we replaced the formal road with a access drive, an emergency access drive that would connect the end of the cul-de-sac to Church Street. We did have the RV and boat storage.
Excuse me, we're looking at a plan here, and it doesn't show it, so we're on the wrong sheet?
Yes, if you want to get to the nuts and bolts on that.
Where did the RV and boat storage change to? I don't see it on
I'll get to that in a minute. So this is the emergency, so I think it shows up in its entirety here.
Okay, thank you.
Tree line. So we've revised the plan to eliminate the RV and boat storage from this area here,
kept the emergency access as we presented at the last meeting. The emergency access would consist of a paved apron at Church Street. Again, trying to, when the emergency vehicles do come in, we want a hardened surface, so when you're accelerating out into the public way, there's not a carryover of gravel. The road does slope back down into the site, so there's not a direction of runoff into the street. And we've proposed, as we did in the original plan, breakaway bollards or foldable bollards in both locations here at Church Street and down at the cul-de-sac, together with signage that this access way is limited to emergency access. So it would not be available for the patrons or the residents of the development to traverse that section of road and go out to church. We think that was a major concern of, again, some of the board members and clearly the neighborhood, some of the neighborhood members on Church Street. So that has been changed on the plan, and we think it's a major improvement. Eliminating the boat storage from this area, we have moved it down to the clubhouse area. We've reduced its size because the applicant did some research. We are providing limited number of spaces right in this area here, near the community building, for RV and boat storage, but we think that the number of spaces we're creating, I think we've got 4 RV and boat storage spaces with the ability, if demand increased, to add 4 more in that area. We think that that's more than adequate for the intended or the anticipated use. Yeah, I'm not following where that space is.
Okay, so you just go to the grading plans, it should be on SG1. And that's down in this area.
Okay, and, so we've repositioned the parking facility down in that area and added 4 RV and boat storage spaces on the north side of the community building, down off the access way that would...
Just 4 spaces?
That seems kind of low for 50 houses full of retail.
Well, we're down to 44, so when you take away the units that Attorney Prophet was just talking about, that we are in the residential zone, and I pointed out to the board, are not buildable lots. This has gone from a 49-unit project down to a 44-unit project. And so it's essentially 10%. And what they did was they looked at other similar facilities, and they found that they weren't even having any boats or RVs. So allocating more space is really just creating more impervious area with no great benefit. If we needed to, we've looked at it, and we believe we could reposition things to create an additional 4 spaces if needed. But we don't believe that's really going to be the case in this type of development. So
Okay.
there is no set percentage within the ARC regulations in terms of how many spaces need to be provided. So we think that, again, they can limit, when they're selling units, that they're going to limit to first come, first serve, and that would cap the number of people who could have an RV or a boat within the development. So that's really a marketing issue, not a zoning issue. There is a zoning requirement. We provide some storage of that nature, but that's it. So those are the 2 big access-related issues or changes that have been made. We know there was a lot of discussion about the width of the main roadway along Wall Street and Park Avenue here. We took the direction of the board and widened the pavement to a minimum of 24 feet on this portion of the road here, with Cape Cod berms on either side, and then also we made this 22 feet. And again, that's an item that was discussed at the last meeting, and we believe those are the widths and the dimensions that you were asking us to provide for the project. And after making those changes, that we, again, I think was what we had discussed, we've also reanalyzed the drainage, so we've eliminated a lot of pavement up in this area here, a lot of pavement eliminated here. We've added some pavement on the roadways, but the net result is we actually have a net decrease in impervious surface. We've rebalanced the drainage, submitted that information to JC. I did have an opportunity to speak with the engineer from JC very briefly. He explained that You know, like every other engineering firm, they're pretty busy right now and didn't have an opportunity to get to our redesign package, but he committed to having his review completed by the beginning of next week, in that he would reach out to me if there were additional questions or comments that he needed to have clarification on, so that by the time we return in a few weeks, hopefully, that those issues will have been resolved and we'll be ready to move forward on other issues. So those are the major changes that have been made. I think at the last meeting we discussed in this area here, lots 1 through 6, we reduced one lot in this area here. So we eliminated a lot here, and we are designating these lots as non-buildable on the recordable plans.
Now, tell me, which lots are you going to say are non-buildable?
The non-buildable lots are the ones where we are not able to place a residential structure, a residential structure in the business zone, so lots 33 to 36 are non-buildable lots. We are able to position the structures outside of the residential zone on all the remaining lots.
So 39 and 40, you got enough room for a house there?
That's correct, and that is shown on the grading plans where they're.
Was there an issue with how close Lot 1 was to the entrance to 44?
There was basically this, I think it's 200 feet that you can't have.
A driveway.
Any driveway, and I think the intent of
That
so in other
allows for
words, you
this
can't access the lot, and zoning says you have to access through your frontage.
Yeah,
So
but that was.
in my opinion, those were no access lots, and that's kind of what the intent was when that bylaw was written.
Right, so you're keying on the right point, though. There was that question, and because there's a detention pond up in that area, we were asked to make sure we could demonstrate we could in fact get a driveway into Lot 1, even though we're coming in off the common driveway that's being created.
You meet the 200.
And
Well, I think.
So we eliminated one lot in that area.
So in other words, Lot 1 is more than 200 feet off.
We started by shifting all the lot lines to the
southerly lot lines more than 200 feet to get a driveway.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, again, we're relying on the common driveway for that access, which connects to Wall Street and runs down to the community building.
Do you have a scale on this, Steve?
Scale is an inch and 80 feet.
You have a scale on
Yeah,
it?
on the scale, I'm sorry.
Because 200 feet is somewhere around here. So if you take 200 feet, that's Lot 1 and 2. Can't get a driveway. Yeah, your
We
first lot you can
we don't have a driveway within 200 feet of the street.
Coming off the.
We're coming off the common.
I think the
yeah.
issue was before, I thought it was you had to have access through your frontage, so you don't have access through your frontage.
I'm sorry, you
So
started
I
to say
don't
you're
know if
coming
that
off
would
of what?
violate
We're
zoning.
the driveway access is off the common driveway, which feeds down to the,
No, I know, but zoning says every lot has to be accessed through its frontage, and it doesn't specify what zone.
Oh, okay.
And so, in other words, it's like a non-access, no access highway. But we'll look at it.
What do you think of that? That's it.
And we just got it and saw the revisions the first time tonight, so I'm not prepared to act on anything.
Retirement community.
That's the same thing.
Something like that.
I don't have the benefit of being part of that one before my time.
Chris, for the next meeting, could you put together a brief synopsis of what lots you have issues with and what the issues are?
Yeah, I want to first see the zoning board's
Oh, yeah, sure.
decision, which I didn't have access to from last night to today, and see what plan was submitted. Because I don't think the zoning board was waiving a buffer that was already in a residential zone. They may not have fully understood what the buffer was supposed to be. So it was supposed to be, to me, along the residential line.
We had a long discussion with the ZBA, both in open, and then they discussed it in executive session, that same exact issue. And all three of them came to the same conclusion after reading the bylaw, that it is from the perimeter, not from the residential line.
But it doesn't matter.
But they made a decision that hasn't been appealed.
They're not voting on the special permit, though.
Correct, but you're overriding the
No, I'm not
ZBA's
overriding the
decision with
ZBA's
regard
decision.
to
They
a
gave
zoning
you a
issue.
buffer zone
No,
that I don't believe, they gave you a buffer zone out in space that doesn't belong, that's past the, that's like saying you have a business lot and a residential lot. You gotta be 50 foot from the business line for a buffer. If your lot's split in half, you gotta be from that line. You don't say, well, my lot goes back 200 feet, I'm gonna have a 25-foot buffer back, 150 feet into the residential. I don't think.
That is the exact opposite of what the ZBA said at the beginning.
Well, Chris,
Well, I
I'd
don't
like
really-
you to put together briefly in
Yeah, I
writing
don't,
what you feel the various lots that have issues and what those issues are. And then you guys can go do some research and decide, convince the board that that's not right.
Because it's almost ignoring that the town meeting voted not to do the zoning change.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one other thing as well?
You may.
Maureen, could, at the next meeting, could you bring in a copy of the minutes from the zoning board of appeal meeting, that particular meeting?
Well, and maybe send it to people beforehand so it
Yeah,
can be
I
reviewed.
don't want to look at the decision at a meeting.
long as they're
Can't say anything unless you go up there.
I want to read them outside.
Yeah, if you send them out to us, that'd be great.
Once they get approved, it will.
Yeah, if you could can you email me the decision?
Sure.
Wow, this is busy.
Maybe,
You're using
take a picture of the plan presented.
driveway between lots 1 through 4. Now, is that a road,
That's a common driveway.
common driveway?
Yes.
Okay.
It's, the cross-section of the construction of it is the same as Park Avenue, so it's the same 22 feet of pavement with the Cape Cod berms. And again, we widened that from what it originally was, in keeping with the direction we believe we received at the last meeting.
We received indications from the zoning enforcement officer with regards to the driveway. And it was his
Could you be
opinion of
close enough to the,
Thing is, you're
It
kind of
was the
making a
zoning
pseudo
enforcement
roadway to use
officer's
it for lot
opinion
area.
that was allowable. The
Uh-huh.
only request was that the common driveway meet the same standards as the roads, which we've done. and
so
also
why
be
aren't you
given a
calling
name.
it a road?
We're giving it a name. It's gonna be-
Because they're using the road as lot area to have the lots comply to zoning. In other words,
Oh, okay.
the lots,
It's-
the actual real lot area, which would be
Yep,
to the east of the road,
yep,
doesn't have enough area.
Okay.
So that's a creative way to,
okay.
it'd be no different than using these roadways as lot area and calling them all
Mr.
these.
Chairman, would you like a copy of the zoning enforcement officer's opinion with regard to that? I have it, a copy for you if you'd like it.
If you could give it to Maureen and she can send it to us along with the other zoning CBA issues.
I can give her a copy of the ZBA decision as well.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Bob a question? This is a
may.
very minor item, but I seem to remember when we did the public hearing on the Cumberland Farms, the lady who lived behind that buffer zone insisted that no matter what the map showed, the name of that street was, what did she, do you remember what she said? No, there's Sylvia, and there's another one, but she said that the third piece, I thought she said it was it Wayne? Okay, I thought it might have been, well, I knew it began with a W. All right, I just wanted to make sure.
What does that have to do with that plan?
Because this plan has a Wall Street, and I thought that might have been Wall, but it wasn't. You correct me, it was Wayne. I guess I just wanted to make sure I was remembering properly.
911.
What?
Yeah, the
Well, 911, you gotta put the names.
fire department checks the name.
Oh, I know they do, I was just, whatever.
How big is the community center, the building?
You don't have a scale either.
I don't have a scale, but I think it's 20 by 30, so I think it, oh no, it's bigger than that, it's 40,
What's that?
40 by
Small
20,
building.
40 by 20.
40 by 20, okay.
Well, 1 inch equals 80 feet.
That plan's 1 inch equals 40.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you had.
Different scale, different page,
scale,
yeah. You're right, I'm sorry.
We want to screw you up there.
Checking, make
Bylaw
sure.
doesn't require a community building the way I read it.
No, I don't think so either. Do you have any questions for anybody?
Just gotta go through everything and get clarification on
Okay. Do you have any
Gold
questions for
buffer.
anybody?
No, I've asked what I have to ask.
Chris, do you have anything, or you want to do the reviewing before you ask questions?
I want to review, I mean, I'm going to revisit whatever waivers, just see what, I just want to make sure we're consistent with what's been done with other projects. And I want to review the zoning board's decision and
Yep.
see what I feel where that buffer would be from.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add?
I'll get my own independent, I'll make my own opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little dismayed, obviously. I was here before you at the last meeting. Everybody confirmed that they were comfortable to confirm the plan as it was. If we went in front of the ZBA with two specific questions, we went in front of the ZBA with those two specific questions, they granted the variance on one, and they denied the variance on the other, so we changed that. This plan has been in front of this board for over a year. This is taking a long time. I feel as if we're not going to get it approved no matter what we do.
Well, the other issue you had, which is what I can say, is coupled with the ZBA decision. You had the zoning change. So the zoning change failed, so that changed things.
Correct.
Because that was part of it. Even if you got the ZBA, even if you got the zoning change, these were things you needed above and beyond the zoning change to go to ZBA. We assumed you were going, we went under the assumption you were going to get the zoning change. You didn't. So that kind of throws a fly in the ointment.
The zoning change was denied, and we're not placing any units
Well, it doesn't
of
matter.
the community.
Your opinion on it and mine differ, obviously, but
What?
that was all part of the deal,
plan
and that's
is
why.
considerably different than it was before, and we're reviewing the new plan.
Yeah.
And the new plan hasn't been before us for a year.
And when you,
The new plan was delivered 2 weeks ago, and the ZBA decision was done a month ago.
Okay, so.
well, when you initially designed the plan, for some reason unbeknownst to me, you ignored reading the bylaws.
No.
Because you designed a plan that had land in residential A, and you had houses, you had lots, when
You know,
it's not
if we just-
allowed. So you designed it without it meeting zoning, and I guess we would, I don't know what you were thinking, but I had said a year and a half, 2 years ago, that to go for the zoning change, and they should have gone for it back then. It might have been a lot easier, and it might have been through. And so that was not done, and then it was done kind of improperly, and then that's what took you the year and a half. It's not us.
Okay, we have a couple of people there. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have a letter from my neighbors and I.
Identify yourself, please.
Sorry, Drew Napick, 494 Church Street. I have a letter from my neighbors and I. It was written without seeing the plan. We kind of had to, given the Independence Day holiday, but I had a question. The lots 33 and 34, I'm not sure which other ones, that are listed as non-buildable, so they'll just be on the plan as non-buildable, at least until something changes that would allow building. Like, I guess if the zoning did change, then maybe that would be a possibility, but
Correct.
they're filing them as, on paper, as non-buildable.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what they said.
All right, I'm gonna, I'd like to read this letter. It's not very long. I will refrain from maybe a part or two that addresses some stuff that's already been discussed. But to the Raynham Planning Board, we're writing to express our continuing concerns regarding the ARC at Church Street and 44.
You're gonna give us a copy of that, aren't you?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm just gonna turn this in. I can give these both to Ms. McKinney. We had concerns about the ZBA's decision. It was vague at best, especially with regard to the property to the south, the area of the property on the south part, the Res A. The decision seemed to imply the 25-foot buffer would start from the property line and extend into the property instead of from the zoning line, which I guess we're having some debate over. I requested a written clarification to the admin assistant, and she offered her understanding of the board's decision, but I never received written clarification from the board, from my neighbors and I. Her understanding seemed to indicate that lots from the ARC would be allowed to extend into the Res A. She did say that that would be, quote, consistent with uses for split zoning lots in Raynham, and referred us to the zoning enforcement officer. A phone call placed to him yielded the same opinion, although he acknowledged there is no bylaw specifying said use. And then we just wanted to remind the planning board about the ARC being an industrial or business district, and no matter that the Board of Appeals very carefully stated in its decision that there shall be no building in the Res A district, and that the buffer would be reduced from 75 feet to 25 feet as shown on the plan, we believe that allowing any part of an ARC to extend into property that is residential zoned is a clear violation of the bylaws, regardless of the Board of Appeals decision. I don't see how a piece of government can just make a decision regardless of the law. So that's our concern there. As far as the road, the access road from the ARC coming out onto Church Street, first, it's inside the 75-foot buffer zone to the residential properties. And the bylaw specifies clearly that the screening zone may be used for placement of utility easements and or primary roadway. It says nothing about anything else. The ZBA, despite the lack of a variance request for the access road in the first place, decided that, quote, the emergency access road shall be allowed within the screening buffer zone. Variance is granted from 1811D to allow the emergency access road as shown on the plan. They simply don't have the power to do this. Even if they refer to the powers granted to you, gentlemen, in the powers section, to reduce it to 25 feet, according to the last plan we had access to, and I don't believe this has changed, I don't know the scale on there. I have minimal experience with blueprints, but that road is far closer than 25 feet to at least 3 different residential properties in at least 3 different places. So the variance granted by the ZBA would be illegitimate because they don't even have the power to reduce it past 25 feet. I mean, based on the scale that I had from the previous plan, and I don't believe the road has changed locations from the previous plan, that road is within maybe 15 feet, maybe even less, of one of my neighbor's property lines. So I don't see how that's possible, even with a variance, because it's under 25 feet. And it can't be made a primary road because the primary road shouldn't be within 75 feet of a res property either. Furthermore, we had expressed concern to the planning board long ago regarding the placement of the road and the lack of screening between it and the abutting properties, especially 599 Church Street, which is the closest on the back side near that road. The bylaw requires screening, lists all the ways that can be done. Again, according to the last plan we had, it doesn't look like that's changed. The requirement for visual screening is not fulfilled. And the people who abut the ARC should have a say in what's considered adequate visual screening between their property and the project. Should the access road go in regardless of the bylaws and our concerns, another thing consistently expressed to the planning board has been we are adamant about no traffic on the access road during construction of the ARC. Before we were even aware that a variety of zoning bylaws were being violated, our biggest concern was more traffic on Church Street. When we've raised concern about construction traffic in the past, we've been told that construction won't cause much traffic and that any machines will be dropped off and left on site, so trucks won't be going in and out. This insults our intelligence. New construction projects require not only earth-moving equipment, but dump trucks to remove or bring in material, trucks to bring in drainage and sewer pipes, concrete, rebar, lumber, Tyvek wiring, plumbing, sheetrock, shingles, scaffolding, hardware, and everything else required to do a build. Add to that the tradesmen and inspectors coming in and out. On a job the size of the one being proposed, this is going to go on for years. The increase in traffic on Church Street and the disturbance to the people whose land the access road would come within feet of is unacceptable. Again, should the access road go in regardless of the bylaws and our concerns, there should be no traffic in or out of the ARC via the access road while any phase of the project remains unfinished. Finally, should any part of this project be completed in a way that is inconsistent with the final approved plan, or should any part of the project be later altered in a way that is inconsistent with the final approved plan, we will insist that the zoning enforcement officer, building inspector ensure the plan is adhered to. If that office or any other Raynham office or officer does not ensure the final approved plan is adhered to, then be assured that other options to guarantee adherence have already been discussed and are very much on the table. Very sincerely and respectfully submitted.
Okay, thank you.
question, based on the new plan, their signatures for those men. Thank you.
We'd like you back over at the,
Yeah, this, sir, just get it over here.
There's a laser pointer over there if you need to use it.
Oh, that would be helpful, thank you.
that's the button? Yes, that's the button up there.
So, looking at the new plan, with regard to the access road, the boat RV area has been moved, and I understand there's an issue with keeping the square footage of wetlands and keeping that number, breaking even with that, basically. So my question is, to avoid the problem with the access road, again, we have the zoning issue with the access road, but we would contend that that cul-de-sac, which again crosses the zoning line, could be farther in, and I don't even know if the number of house lots would be affected if some of these wetlands could be moved to where the boat and RV area was. So,
They probably wouldn't, like, if you're filling and moving wetlands, you have to have a pretty good reason. And where they're crossing, that's called, considered a limited project crossing to get to their upland. They can't like randomly move them because they want to move like a RV area.
They're not.
They wouldn't, that wouldn't fly. I mean, to me, the cul-de-sac is part of an ARC and again, shouldn't be in that zone. So the cul-de-sac would have to move. And I don't know, the boat and RV, they're claiming they have adequate boat and RV. It doesn't really provide in the bylaw how to calculate that anyway. It just says boat and RV storage.
okay, well, our concerns about the zoning and the road stand. Again, that road coming within maybe a dozen, 15 feet of my neighbor's property and well within the 75, like I said, even if the 25, you're still way closer. I mean, it's not even close. So.
Well, I want to read the zoning opinion and get the report from our engineer before I try to answer that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything to say? What's the time to act?
It is August 15th.
Okay. I presume we should come back on August 1st. We should have a lot more information. What have we put on so far? We have a 6:10 and a 6:15, I think?
Yep, public hearing on ATG at 6:15 and Raynham Preserve at 6:10.
Well, why don't we do this for 6:30? And Chris, can you be here?
Yep.
Okay.
Obviously, we've got 6:30, but it should always be the last one so that Dan can be involved in everything else.
Yeah, I presume nothing else will go on, or if it is,
No, I
we'll
mean,
put it
the
on
only
at
reason
6:20.
it's because you have the two hearings that have been continued 100 times.
Yeah.
And get every single planning board meeting. I mean, and they're very simple, I think, projects, but that's, my opinion is moved on that. But if they can move past that, I think Greystone, I watched that, they get approved.
It's done.
Done.
Yeah, I was watching the other one for a while and drove down here, thinking that I'd be here at 7 would be safe.
We have a 6:15, which is probably going to be pretty long unless it gets continued. But we'll say 6:30 for now and see what happens.
Yeah. That may not be that bad
So,
to trucking terminal.
obviously, there's a lot of different opinions out there. I wasn't here when you wrote Article 18, so I'm not sure, other than talking to Chris, what the intent was. But to read it the way it's read, you can read it in several different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why I've had town council help me with some of the, some of the ways you read this and some of the interpretations. I think you should probably, try to point this project in some direction instead of just letting them go back again without any kind of direction. What do they come back with? What are we going to do for the next meeting? Are we going to move this forward?
Well, the next meeting, Chris is going to be more specific about what his concerns are, and we'll know how to address them better.
Do we need an opinion from town council on the zoning board's relief?
Well, I haven't read the zoning board's
I mean, I
opinion,
don't-
so I don't even, I need to look
I
at
think I
that
can
too.
make my own opinions, and I think I probably know as much about zoning and planning bylaw as many councilmen.
I'm sure you do.
So, and I was there when the bylaw was written, and it was specific to Berry Hill. And that met all the regs, and that's how that, the bylaw was written with the 75-foot buffer, the 25. It was actually written that the planning board can waive the buffer, so it didn't even give you zoning
Well,
board
that's what we
relief,
talked-
but you
we
can
talked
argue
about
that.
before. Obviously, we have some creative engineering here, but when you see what they've done with the, creative engineering, when you read the bylaw, it's hard to refute some of the stuff that's on the plan, because
Yeah, but the
it
bylaw-
seems like it's allowed because of the way the bylaw is written, so.
Yeah, that's called our previous plan. He'd write bylaws not like laws. They weren't as specific, but even though you say creative, you can't creatively violate zoning. Like if the zoning says the buffer's from this point over,
Well, it's like-
you
it's like
can't say, I'm gonna be creative and ignore that and put it over here.
It's like any attorney, it's an interpretation. You get three attorneys, you get three different interpretations of something.
Yes, and they're gonna give an opinion, that's what they're paid for, to give an opinion for their client. But again, I mean, when this thing first came in, it blatantly didn't meet zoning, and I don't know, it should have came in, it didn't go the right steps. It came in, we're not meeting zoning, instead of changing the zoning first. That should have been done before the plan even came in front of us. They should have went for a zoning change, and I said that like 2 years ago. And I said that before the plan even came in, I said that, and it fell on deaf ears. And I said, you gotta get the zoning change first. And I didn't think it was a big deal. And a lot of these ZBA things were predicated on getting the zoning change that didn't happen. And that's, like I said, that's what threw the fly in the ointment. On top of the zoning change, you also needed the ZBA changes, and so you didn't get one of them. So the others don't really matter. But I'll read the zoning bylaw interpretation and see what plan they went by. It's obviously was this one, if it's reflecting the 25 out, 100 feet into the residential zone. But,
Was this the plan you showed ZBA?
yeah.
If I may, I think the only difference is, on the plan we did go to the ZBA with, it did show the RV storage, so that's the only real change that's.
Yeah, so I'd
that's
imagine,
occurred.
I'm showing the 25, I'd imagine that's what you showed, because that's what you were
That's
asking
correct,
for.
yeah.
And I don't, everyone interprets things different, but, the ZBA gets the stuff the night of the meeting. I don't think they get to sit and go review the bylaw and go through all that, so they're at a little bit of a disadvantage as well.
Can I,
Sure.
I was just wondering, if the next meeting we could get actual, I'm sure we could look at the plans now by the scale, but if we could get actual measurements from the cul-de-sac and from that access road to the abutting properties, because just so we have actual numbers. And the other thing I was gonna add was,
Well, I would say the plan is available at the planning board office downstairs.
Okay,
And
I just want them.
you're welcome to come in with a ruler and take a look at it.
Okay, I will do that, sir. But just if they could be mentioned during one of the meetings, so they're on the record, just the distances. I mean, I can, if I go measure it, then I suppose I could mention it in one of the meetings, so I guess we could do it that way.
Well, it's, I'm sure you'll be here, and make sure we remember to ask that question.
I was also going to add, I don't even know if it made it into the minutes, because I think it might have occurred after the meeting was officially adjourned, but the chair of the ZBA expressed that he wasn't even clear on what a buffer meant at the zoning, at the ZBA meeting. So I don't know, I think it may have been after the meeting was officially adjourned, so I don't know if it made it into the minutes, but it might be relevant.
Okay. I'm hoping this is it.
Check.
can I get clarification? I'm just confused because we have a ZBA decision that hasn't been appealed.
And which I haven't read.
Okay. But how is, that's pretty much done, correct? We're not going to revisit a zoning decision that's already been done and not appealed?
Well, when we grant a special permit, we can put any conditions regardless of what the zoning board says. I mean, we could require a different buffer, I believe, even though they waived, but I don't see that, you know. But under a special permit, we can have any condition we think is reasonable, or any condition we think could be on a plan. You know, in granting a special permit, we have pretty much a broad sword on what we can do. So the ZBA is not.
So why did you require us to go back to the ZBA then? I'm just trying to get some direction here because we were told to go to the ZBA with two specific issues.
No, we were, but when you were told to go to the ZBA, as I've repeated about 10 times, we based that on the zoning change happening, and it didn't happen. So with the zoning change not happening, an ARC cannot be put in a residential zone, and it appears a good chunk of it is in a residential zone.
But your bylaws do allow for a property to be in two different zones.
If you could show me that bylaw, it doesn't exist.
You can ask.
It doesn't matter, ask. Drew just said he asked. There's no split zone bylaw.
We don't have
It
a
doesn't.
split zone bylaw, but we have a lot of properties that are split zone.
A lot of properties that are split zoned were split zoned
And I guess
before
we have to look
the
at-
zoning came in after, like 138 and all those were big pieces of property, and they made the zone 250. They were already existed.
So
But
is this
you don't,
I'll tell you, if you have a piece of property that's split zone, you use all the area. If you require to have 40,000 square feet on a residential property that has a piece of business property attached to the rear, and there are many lots in town that have that, you use the whole perimeter of that property for your calculation to make it a 40,000 square foot.
but this is a different animal. This is an adult retirement community that's one unit. And it's saying that community cannot be, well, it can only be in business and industrial. It clearly goes into the residential, so it's saying you can't do
What I'm saying is
that.
there's no bylaw that says you cannot use another zoning to create a
But there's no
lot.
bylaw that says you can.
There's no bylaw that says you can't either, so.
Yeah, but it's an ARC. It doesn't say you can do an ARC in a business zone, but if you feel like going 300 feet in a residential zone, hey, that's cool too. You know, it doesn't say that. It says it has to be in a business zone. That's my opinion, and that's what happened when we wrote it. And that was the intent, and,
Well, the intent doesn't really matter. If you
Yeah.
put something in writing and voted on it and accepted it, and it wasn't what we meant, well, we
plans to be
goofed, but
signed.
it says what it
plans to be
says.
I think it's written, in some sections it's correct.
It's a comfort level from the board here. You gotta feel comfortable with what you have in front of you. Is this better than what you had before? Are you making improvements to the plan? You know, it's, in the end, it's the same use. It's a residential use. ARC is a residential use.
But it says in the bylaw that the planning board cannot endorse it unless it complies to zoning. And if we feel it doesn't comply to zoning,
Well, it's gonna be up to you to decide whether you feel it complies or not at this point.
yeah, I'm not gonna, and that's what I'm getting at.
Well,
And so that's why I want to reread it and read their zoning board decision, see what plan was presented, which was Steve saying this one, and then see how it matches that decision.
All right, you're gonna do that and tell us what lots you think have a problem and what that problem is. And I'm gonna read the bylaw over a few more times. And we're gonna come back on August 1st at 6:30 and talk about it some more.
And Maureen's gonna send us the,
And we're gonna read the zoning opinion in the meantime, too.
Next week. Not tomorrow.
And I just adjourned the meeting, so we're done.
motion to adjourn, or has that happened already?
I just did.
You did it?
We all
Okay.
voted in favor.
Where was that?